Welcome in. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for staying with us on WCNC Plus Live Impact News. In front of me is the hardworking and talented producer, Carlene Bragg. How are you doing this afternoon?
Good. How are you, Nick?
I'm doing well.
Yeah.
We did the 9 to 11 stream, and now we are buckled in for the afternoon stream. And we begin, frankly, on a sad note. We just got word, and we're seeing more outlets report this, from TMZ to People Magazine, New York Times, so on. This news. This is from TMZ. D'Angelo, Grammy Award winning soul singer, dead at the age of 51. Again, Grammy Award winning R&B soul singer D'Angelo, dead from pancreatic cancer. That's according to TMZ. I mean, he has hits like Brown Sugar, How Does It Feel, also known as Untitled. Voodoo album came out in 2001. Black Messiah that came out in 2016. I'm just naming albums. When I think about D'Angelo, I think about my childhood. That's some of my first exposure to soul music. This is a guy that grew up in the gospel church, and you heard it through his music. Played the piano. Iconic, has an incredible story. I encourage folks to go back and look at his story and really sort of take a deep dive in it. But a musical genius, but again, dead at the age of 51 from pancreatic cancer, according to TMZ. They were able to confirm that to folks connected to his family and his former manager. Really in shock. Again, I grew up as a D'Angelo, still a D'Angelo fan. I was telling Carlene, I have a huge D'Angelo poster from his second album, Voodoo, on my wall. Love his music. Grew up on it. I remember, and I'm reading this from TMZ, and I remember this. Raphael Saadiq, from the iconic group Tony, told Rolling Stone, a podcast from Rolling Stone, rather, that he was working on, D'Angelo was working on some new music and a new album. Also, he was planning to perform at the Roots Picnic back this past summer. He had canceled, they said, due to a medical issue. The singer is survived by 2 sons and a daughter. And the mother of his first son was the late Angie Stone, who tragically died in a car accident this year.
I am growing more familiar.
Yeah.
I've heard of D'Angelo, but I would ask, did we know that he was battling pancreatic cancer, or was that kept under?
We did not know.
Okay.
I think this was, I'm sure, close friends, family, but
Yeah.
we knew that.
The world at large did not know.
Yeah, the world at large did not know, but we knew he had a medical issue.
Okay.
Because he had to pull out from the Roots
Yes.
Picnic performance. But that's all we knew. D'Angelo is notoriously private. A guy who sort of, after his second album, went into seclusion, dealt with some personal issues, and then came back out with his third album back in 2016. So he took a hiatus. Fans love him. He constantly toured until recently. So rest in peace, D'Angelo, 51 years old. All right, so let's shift gears now. We want to send it out to Philadelphia, where right now Fed Chair Jerome Powell is making remarks on the economic outlook at a National Association of Business Economics annual meeting. Let's take a listen in.
As rising core goods inflation has outpaced continued disinflation in housing services. Available data and surveys continue to show that goods price increases primarily reflect tariffs rather than broader inflationary pressures. Consistent with these effects, near-term inflation expectations have generally increased this year, while most longer-term expectation measures remain aligned with our 2% goal. Rising downside risks to employment have shifted our assessment of the balance of risks. As a result, we judged it appropriate to take another step toward a more neutral policy stance at our September meeting. There is no risk-free path for policy as we navigate the tension between our employment and inflation goals. This challenge was evident in the dispersion of committee participants' projections at the September meeting. And I'll stress again that these projections should be understood as representing a range of potential outcomes whose probabilities evolve as new information informs our meeting-by-meeting approach to policymaking. We'll set policy based on the evolution of the economic outlook and the balance of risks rather than following a predetermined path. And with that, thank you again for this wonderful award and for inviting me here today. I look forward to our discussion. Thank you.
You need your iPad or?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair Powell, for the excellent remarks in the Adam Smith address. And we will have about half an hour for questions.
Sounds
So
like a long
should
time.
have talked longer. So let me start with, before I go to some of the questions coming in from the audience, and do use the Connect app to generate those. You have said, and you repeated again here, that there are no risk-free paths for the Fed now. So in light of that, and in particular, with where the recent inflation data are running, let me group this with some of the questions that we're seeing coming in on the app as well. Obviously, always data dependent. But thinking about the dual mandate of maximum employment and price stability, how concerned are you that if the rate of pass-through of tariffs is slower, that might begin to look like more persistent inflation, as opposed to a one-time, as if the tariff adjustment came through all at once, and then it would be quite clearly a one-time price level shift?
So that's certainly a risk. As I mentioned, there really isn't a risk-free path now, since it appears that inflation is running above our target and appears to be continuing to increase quite gradually, but increase. It's still on the way up. So there's a risk there that would lend to greater persistence. But now the labor market has demonstrated pretty significant downside risks as payroll jobs have declined, and both the supply and demand for labor has declined quite sharply. So those two states of affairs for our two goal variables, call for different monetary policy responses. So as they come more into balance, I think the idea has been that policy should move from being tight to some degree to being more neutral as those two things balance. It is clear, though, that if we move too quickly, then we may leave the inflation job unfinished and have to come back later and finish it. And if we move too slow.
All right, so you are looking live in on Fed Chair Jerome Powell speaking now at an annual National Association for Business Economics meeting there in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, talking about the economic outlook for the country. All right, so we want to come back here at home, and we want to talk about an incredible story out of Rowan County. So a new resource in Rowan County is seeking solutions for those who once helped us. The Charlotte Hornets Foundation has awarded a $100,000 grant to Soldiers Angels to open a food pantry dedicated to serving local veterans. WCNC Charlotte's Walker Lawson is there in Salisbury. Walker, walk us through how this is already making a difference, man.
Yeah, well, just forewarn, it is a little windy out here, so if you guys can't hear me, let me know, and I'll try to change positions for you guys. But so this new food pantry is actually opened up this morning at 10:30. It's here at the Rowan Community Center, and for people that might not be familiar with the Rowan Community Center, this actually used to be the Salisbury Mall that is now transferred over to some buildings here for the county, and then the food pantry is now inside it on a portion that they're also working on of the Salisbury Mall to transform. So yeah, we got here today. They served 75 veterans here. They opened up slots for people to basically come in and get the items that they would like. There's fresh fruit. You have different foods here that they can access. And so they've opened up 75 slots. They filled up almost immediately. And county leaders, again here, the mayor, county leaders, as well as the Charlotte Hornets Foundation, really saying that this is important and there is a dire need here in this area.
What were some of the conversations it's like with veterans there who are I read some of your story, but what some of the conversations with veterans who were there to get help, to get assistance?
Yeah, so we spoke to some veterans that were here that were kind of helping a part of getting people out here and kind of talking to people. So again, just forever grateful and thankful. Obviously, it's difficult because the VA hospital is located here, so there is such a need. And we spoke to one woman who works with veterans who said that it can be hard for some people because a lot of these places will only be open once, every 2 weeks to feed people in these communities. And county officials told me there's about 9,000 veterans here in Rowan County alone. So this is really in the center point. It's near the VA hospital. It's near all county buildings located in the Salisbury area. So really just grateful and thankful. And again, trying to pay back to these people, of course, because it can be really hard, as they said, transitioning out of serving and coming back into the real world out here again. So this is really just trying to make sure that these people will have food, so no veteran again goes hungry.
Man, such a great effort there in Salisbury. All right, that's Walker Lawson there in Salisbury. You can catch him at 5:30 to learn more about the story. Walker, thank you for your time, man.
Of course, thank you.
All right, yeah, incredible story. You can catch that story at 5:30 this evening here on WCNC Plus, also on WCNC Charlotte and on our digital platforms. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back here in just 2 minutes here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. All right, welcome back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Serderman. Carlene is here. Jeb is here. He's back after a week off. All right. I just want to give him a shout out. All right, we want to go back now to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, where we're hearing from Fed Chair Jerome Powell. Let's take a listen in.
Different universes and different levels of rigor in their data analysis. So we're looking at lots of things, and we're going to make our decisions according to the FOMC schedule. But I think it will be a lot better once we start getting, for example, the September employment report is going to be a very important report. And we're not on track to have that. There would still be time for us to get that. We will get, of course, the September inflation, the CPI and PPI reports. So that's a positive. But we don't comment on fiscal matters. But from our standpoint, we'll start to miss that data, and particularly the October data. If this goes on for a while, they won't be collecting it, and it could become more challenging.
You used the term gold standard, and you didn't mean it in this context, but I'm going to pivot here because there's a question from the audience that's getting a lot of upvotes. So one of your predecessors, Alan Greenspan, used to view the price of gold as an indicator of inflation risk. So in that context, how do you view the rally that we've seen in gold? And if you want to throw in Bitcoin, you can comment on that too.
You know, I'm not going to comment on any particular asset price, including that one. And I think we think of inflation as driven by, you know, fundamental supply and demand factors. And it's not something we look at, you know, actively.
Fair. The September projections, we saw revised GDP growth projections revised upward for both 2025 and 2026. Now, sometimes it's just an issue to issue thing, but how do you reconcile that projection of stronger growth with what we're seeing in terms of a likely weakening labor market?
So even subsequent to the September SEP, we've seen economic activity data which are surprising to the upside. And as I mentioned in my remarks, so you do have a bit of a tension there between, you know, the labor market data that we see, very low levels of job creation, and yet people are spending. So economic activity is strong, and it's, you know, we're going to have to see how that plays out. Right now, of course, we're not getting any new government data on that, any new federal government data on that, but it does create, you know, of course, if economic activity were stronger, then that would tend to support labor market activities and hiring. So we'll have to see how that works out.
Great. Another topic that has permeated the conference over the last 2 days has been AI. So as the Federal Reserve, like all of us, grapple with the implications of generative AI, what plans are in place to assess its long-term impact on productivity, implications for labor markets, and overall economic stability? And does that present any new risks to monetary policy or financial stability?
So you're right. We're doing what other people are doing, which is, you know, reading all the things that, I mean, so many researchers are working on AI now. It's just amazing. And so we follow all of that. We also have people at the Fed who are doing lots and lots of research on AI. And, you know, in terms of, it's just such early days to be looking for the kind of things that will happen. So, you know, the question of productivity, you know, it was Robert Solow who said that technology is showing up everywhere, but in the productivity data. So this could be the same kind of thing where it's there, but it takes a long time kind of to show itself, because you would think of another big technological advance as potentially raising productivity, but I think it's early to say that we're seeing it. Also, you're seeing, I think some researchers have found effects on hiring from AI for entry-level people and for coders and things like that. So there's probably some of that out there, but it's just so early to say what it will be. We also monitor very carefully what public companies are saying. Increasingly bold statements from mainly large private companies on things that they think they can do across their whole business area with AI, and either, you know, sort of freeze hiring where it is or reduce hiring. And you know, I think we're pretty aware of what the potential outcomes are, but the range of potential outcomes is very broad. I will say, in terms of what the Fed can do, you know, we deal with supply and demand. You know, we have an interest rate, and we also do regulation, that kind of thing. But if what's needed is greater education and skills, I mean, I've always liked the model that you know, technology can work for everybody as long as everybody's getting the skills and aptitudes they need to use that technology. This is Golden and Katz, you know, their work, which they actually spoke about at Jackson Hole this year, but it's a 20-year-old book that they wrote. So we can't do that. That's not something the Fed can do. We also can't address the potential societal disruptions that could happen, you know, potentially, you know, if there's really significant job loss. So there are a lot of, I mean, we're the least of it. There are potentially really significant implications for people in the labor force. And I think we're all speculating about what those might be, but it's only the beginning of this story.
Yeah. Looking at some of the other questions that are getting upvoted, and you can get as far into the weeds as you want, but you know this is where people want to go. So let me try this one. As you think of the appropriate level of reserves in the system, what indicators are most important? Is it the price of money, so repo levels, or the volume of borrowings from the Fed, like the discount window, and so on?
So we have a nice spider chart and a 5 main indicators, one of which is sort of repo levels. And I think overall what they're showing is that we're still at ample reserves, abundant reserves. We're still at abundant reserves, meaning above our goal of ample reserves, a little bit above ample reserves. So, but we're beginning to see, you're starting to see a little bit of tightening in money market conditions, particularly repo rates have moved up. And those are the things we're going to be watching. So we think we're still at abundant, and we're, you know, the pace of runoff is now very, very slow. So we're going to be watching all those factors very carefully. And we're not so far away now, but there's a ways to go.
I think we're not going to get away without addressing this one. So I'll try to, again, group some of these together. First, there's definitely appreciation from the audience, your ability to try to remain above the political fray. And I think also, and as in your remarks, you said gradually and predictably, and that sounds really nice right about now. But with that ongoing scrutiny of the policy decisions of the Fed, what measures is the Federal Reserve taking, and are you taking, to ensure and demonstrate the continued independence in setting monetary policy?
So the main thing we can continue to do is to do our work the way we've always done it, which is, you know, think really carefully about evolving economic conditions and the evolving outlook and the balance of risks, and try to make good decisions to best serve, you know, the American public, and then explain those decisions and talk about them in a way that makes sense and is grounded in the data and our overall approach. I think we're going to keep doing that. And as long as we're doing that, people will be able to tell. If we start doing something else, I think people will be able to tell that too. But that's just not something we're ever going to do. We're always going to keep doing our work. We don't engage in back and forth with people. It's just not, that gets to be political sort of right away. So we just do our work and do it as best we can. I mean, overall, I would say the Fed comes through the last, if you think about it, go back to the beginning of the global financial crisis. We've had 2 world historical crises back to back, essentially. And the U.S. economy, it's been quite a ride for the U.S. economy and for American citizens, but we've come through it as well or better than any other country in the world. And we had to innovate and did innovate. There was really no choice. We can look back now and as I did today and second guess ourselves, which is only appropriate. That we've been doing it for 10 years. Since I got to the Fed 12 years ago, we were already doing a lot of that. So that's an ongoing process. But I think if you take a step back, the Fed isn't a government agency that does a good job for the public that it serves, and that is our only goal. And I think we do it pretty well. Don't look for perfection. These are close calls that have to be made in real time. But I guess that's what I would say.
It's fantastic. And in that context, then internally to the FOMC, how important is it that you have consensus on it? I mean, we're economists. We understand the value of spirited debate, and but is that important in terms of communicating the results and the decisions of the committee?
I mean, consensus is great, but I mean, the most important thing of all is to get it right. And, you know, that you come to places, not very commonly, but sometimes you come to places where people are going to have different views. And this is one of them. You have a situation here where literally inflation's above target and gently rising. The labor market is subject to pretty clear downside risks. What do you do? How do you think about that? That's not a problem that you face very often in central banking or in the economy. And people are going to have different weights and different risk aversion and different risk appetites on those things. It would be kind of surprising if you had no debate over those things. So we have a healthy debate going on. I think it's very healthy. I think the meetings that we've been having are as good as any we've had, in terms of people sincerely, giving their absolute best argument for their positions, but they're different positions. That's, I mean, when I was an investor, I always felt like the most dangerous thing is if everybody agreed on something, because you need someone to come in and try to explain why this is a terrible idea. Hopefully somebody really smart. And that would give you the ability to really test your thinking. So I think that's a healthy discussion that we're having right now. And I'm not at all surprised that we have people across the board. I do think we also, as an institution, do try to come together around.
All right, so you're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. We're nearing the top of the hour. So that is Fed Chair Jerome Powell answering questions sort of in a panel sort of format there in Philadelphia, talking about the economic outlook for our country. So that's happening there live. We'll continue to keep an eye on that. We're going to take a quick break, a 2-minute break. We'll be back here in just 2 minutes here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. All right, welcome back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. Carlene is also here in studio with me. So we have a special guest here on Live Impact News. Really, really special story here. A daughter's love and a father's legacy, all inspiring this movement. Creating a nonprofit born from personal experience with a mission to help support caregivers, and she's building a space in a community that is special, that impacts so many people. When you talk about caregivers, when you talk about folks who are taking care of their parents, their loved ones, really special. We have Dana Wade here in studio, founded Percy's Village. Thank you for stopping by in studio.
Thank you for having me, Nick.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's a story. You know, when I reached out and I read your story, I thought about my mom. My mom was a caregiver. I was in college, and she held down the fort, taking care of my grandmother with dementia and my aunt, her sister, who had Down syndrome.
Yep.
And yeah, full-time job, and that's a full-time job on top of having a full-time job.
Right.
We're going to kind of jump all over the place,
Yeah.
but how do you How do you put that in context for folks?
Well, first of all, I don't think we talk about it enough.
Yeah.
You know, there's so many people out here that have taken on the responsibility of being a caregiver and don't even think of it as having taken on a responsibility. For many of us, especially when it depends, and when we're looking at kind of where we come from, so in context,
Yeah.
culturally, it's just something that we do. Right? And so my family, for example, we had a cousin Liz.
Yeah.
And she came all the way to California from Alabama, and she moved and she lived with us. I can't remember a time that we didn't have this cousin Liz who lived with us. And she just became the family caregiver for my grandparents.
Yeah.
And, you know, we are in a time now when the dynamic doesn't always look like that anymore. You know,
Yeah.
the family from, you know, Timbuktu doesn't always come and move in and live with the family and be that support that caregivers need. And so, you know, working to create a village is what I'm doing. And that's why I started this nonprofit in honor of my dad, who was the ultimate caregiver in my heart.
Oh man, let's start from the beginning. Grew up in California, San Jose, the Bay Area.
The Bay Area, yes.
But what do you remember from your childhood? I feel like we all have these core memories from our childhood. What do
Yes.
you remember from your childhood?
Well, it's funny that you mentioned core memories because those, you know, my mom has Alzheimer's, right? And so these core memories are what I'm learning are really the things that kind of keep us moving along. And for me, core memories is a significant part of my life because those are the things that my mom remembers. And so the core memories for me are growing up in a village. So we had a village there. We didn't even know we were creating a village at that time, but my grandparents were very heavily into the church. And so that church family was our village. And so our door was always unlocked. I grew up really just kind of living with my grandparents for the most part. And, you know,
Same.
yeah, right. My parents were always around, but the house,
Yeah.
it's kind of like the home place, right? And that's where our village was created. And so I grew up with that model. And so when my parents moved here to Charlotte, all the way from California, they didn't take their village with them.
Yeah.
You know, they created their own form of a village here in Charlotte. And so I grew up learning how to you know, form these relationships and make these connections and build this community.
Wow.
And so it came very natural to me to do that, especially when my dad passed away.
Yeah. The beautiful folks you see there on your screen is Dana's parents right there. You can see it right there, Dana, on the screen, right?
Yes. Oh, how beautiful. Thank you.
Oh
for
man,
sharing
beautiful
that.
family. You say your dad was a caregiver.
Yes,
Talk
the
about that
ultimate
journey.
caregiver. Well, my mom was actually in a very tragic car accident back in 1989. And it was at that point where she, you know, developed a traumatic brain injury and was really came out of this accident as kind of a miracle story. So from that accident, she had a testimony. I mean, she was in a coma for months, had to learn how to literally do everything over again. And it was just me and my dad for the most part. And so, you know, he became a caregiver for a small child, you know, the primary caregiver for me, and then also the primary caregiver for my mom when she came home from the hospital. And I was able to unfortunately see the what happens to someone when they have a traumatic brain injury and then they have to learn how to do everything over again, and how much support that those people actually need.
Yeah.
And so my dad just provided that for my mom. He was that person. And at that time, you know, I think that he did have some idea that, you know, from what the doctors told them at the time. I was really little, but I've learned later in life that there was some concern that this was going to, you know, be something that we would see the effects of later on in life. And
That it would eventually develop into dementia.
yes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so when my mom was diagnosed with like early onset dementia, first mild cognitive impairment, then kind of this early onset dementia, and then later on ultimately an Alzheimer's diagnosis, it was a surprise to a lot of people in our circle,
Yeah.
but not so much to my dad. You know, my dad kind of always was the caregiver since 1989, right?
Right,
Like
right.
he was the one who just really kind of took on that responsibility of helping my mom with everything, because again, she had to learn how to do everything over again, and she was a different person
Yeah.
after that accident. And so, you know, he never thought twice about it. He led with love, and he was also the type of caregiver that I've learned that I can't be. So
Oh,
I'll
wow.
tell you
That
a
takes
little
a
bit
lot to
about
admit.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, he put everyone first. That was just his nature. And what I learned from that was that you can't pour from an empty cup, right? As a caregiver, it's actually very easy to neglect yourself. And, you know, my dad was caring for everybody else. And, you know, he was the healthy one. He was the healthy one out of the two. And that's why I moved here to Charlotte to take care of him,
Yeah.
as he took care of my mom. And so, you know, ultimately he ended up you know, his health started declining as a caregiver. And I was shocked to learn just the statistics on how many caregivers pass away before the person that they're caring for. It's a Stanford University did a study, it's 40%. And
That's
startling, right? And so as soon as I kind of started digging in and really learning about dementia and what it takes to be a caregiver for someone with dementia and all of these different things, I was like, you know, we have to do more. We have to do more because people are dying. That are the lifeline of our communities, which are our caregivers.
What do you remember most about your dad? I see we had some shots of your dad, and I saw the video of your father singing.
Oh, yes.
The microphone and the guitar.
Oh, yes.
Guitar, as we say here.
Guitar. Yeah, that's what he called. He used his guitar. Yeah.
What do you remember about your dad? What sticks out when you think about Percy?
Oh, wow. Well, my dad was a musician.
Yeah.
So he was a singer. He was a bass player. He was a guitarist. And, you know, having music around in my household.
A great smile. by
Oh
the
my
way.
God. And that great smile,
Great
right?
smile. Yeah, we're still showing some of these
man.
pictures. Great.
Oh, yeah. That's Percy there. And so, yeah, he just was this laugh. If you know, I have some videos I'll show you later,
Yeah.
but his laugh was just infectious, you know? He just was always smiling, always laughing, always joking, and always playing or singing music.
Yeah.
Music was a big part of our lives, and what I learned through that is that being a primary caregiver for someone who has Alzheimer's disease, you know, that music kind of keeps us going.
Yeah.
You know, always having that type of arts element to our lives. But if it's not some music playing, or we're singing songs, or we're, you know, going out in the community and attending, you know, plays and listening to music and live concerts and things like that, those things bring my mom to life. So despite her illness, she is so very active and so happy. And I think that my dad gave that gift of music to us because he was the ultimate musician, you know, like my mom and I sing a little bit here and there, but he was really the talent.
And your father passed away in 2024?
Yes, just
Okay.
in December of 2024.
Wow, so recent, very recent.
Very recently. So I'm, you know, I'm in a grief process
Yeah.
at the same time. And so it's, you know, really kind of talking about this and sharing my story and elevating Percy's Village really actually helps with the grief of suddenly losing someone. That, again, my dad was the healthy one.
Yeah.
So it was very unexpected.
How do you start Percy's Village, help other folks, and then go through the grieving process? Because that's tough.
Yeah, it actually helps, you know, talking about it, because really, you know, at the end of the day, I created Percy's Village so that we can have more of these types of conversations, so that we can share our stories, so that we can learn from each other. I moved to Charlotte not too long ago, and I started immediately meeting people and talking to people while my dad was alive, because I did not really know what was happening to him until I got here. And then when I got here, you know, boots on the ground, and I was like, whoa, we've got to do something about this. Where are the resources? Where's the support that I need to support my dad? And I quickly started meeting folks. The Frankie May Foundation.
Oh, I love the
exactly.
great, incredible people.
Yes,
there, yeah.
yes. The Memory Cafe, Gracious Living, where my mom goes during the day to kind of help keep her active and engaged a lot of the time. Just meeting people out in the community that are doing things like this helps me. Are currently helping me with my grieving process. And then Percy's Village is another one of those organizations that's now helping me with my grieving process.
You provide support for caregivers, but also, I voiced the story that's going to air later. I want to give credit to Pierre Simmons, incredible photojournalist. Went out, interviewed you, put this incredible story together, but a facility on the horizon. Can you talk about that? I know that's in the works, but can you talk about that?
Yes, I would love to talk about it. So when my parents moved here, earlier we were talking about this, way back in 2001, they moved to Charlotte all the way from California, and they fell in love with Charlotte, right? They knew that this was going to be their forever home, where they would, what my dad would always say, you know, we're going to grow old here. We're gonna spend our golden years here in this home here in Charlotte. And so they joined a church here called Greater Providence Baptist Church, and they started building a community. And so when my dad passed away, you know, I didn't know what I was going to do for my mom, whose Alzheimer's is advancing, right? I'm not a trained medical professional, you know, and I didn't think that I had the tools to be able to care for her as her primary caregiver. So I actually found the best memory care facility in Charlotte, and I was like, we're going to just, you know, get the, you know, top of the tier care for her. And I quickly learned, after being there for only a couple of weeks, that this was not the place for mom. This was not the type of support that she needed. It was not personalized at all. I don't know if the people had the resources or the time or the energy to even really know who my mom is, and
or the bandwidth
or
too.
the bandwidth. A lot of times that's what it is. You know, we see a lot of overwork and underpay in care, in just caregiving in general, out in these institutional facilities. And, you know, for me, it just wasn't the right fit. And so I decided that I needed to create that for us. You know, what made sense? What was the type of environment that felt safe, dementia friendly? So really catering to people who, I mean, look, a lot of seniors have got dementia, right? Like, I come across someone every day, I'll share my story, and they'll say, oh, my mom has dementia, my dad has Alzheimer's. And I'm like, what is happening here? Like, why is this so common now? It's kind of scary.
It is.
and so really what I learned from just kind of this commonality that we all have, I'm a career educator, as is my mom. My mom was a teacher for over 40 years. I've been a teacher for over 20 years. And as a career educator, it's my kind of go-to to learn. Right? I just want to learn, and I want to learn so that I can help other people. That's just kind of what I've always done. And so to create a space for my mom that she lives in and has around-the-clock care, that's great, right? But at the same time, having other people come into that space to become an administrator and to get fully licensed and to learn everything that I can about how to be a support system for other family caregivers is just what I knew that I needed to do. So for us, it's about, you know, having these conversations, finding a good fit. So it's not a one size fits all, right?
Right.
So my 4-bed dementia-friendly care home might not be the best fit for maybe someone who isn't as active, for
Right.
example, right? And that's okay, because there are elements of Percy's Village Senior Care that don't necessarily involve moving into our family care home. You
Yeah.
can come and you can get workshops and training on how to be a stress-free caregiver,
Wow, that's
right?
awesome.
You
Yeah.
can come and you can bring your senior or your loved one to our day program and come out with us to field trips and do community outings and things like that. Or you can come and learn more about what it might look like for your loved one to live in our family care home, because we have 24/7 around-the-clock care. We have an amazing team of caregivers
Yeah.
who, you know, have become like family,
Yeah.
because it really is creating a village. And so we're going to start accepting applications just in time for the holidays.
Wow, okay.
And so, you know, please reach out, percysvillage.org. We're on Facebook, we're on TikTok, we're on Instagram.
everything.
Yeah.
You have to be on everything these
Yeah,
days.
yeah. We really want to meet people, and we really want to find this first village. This is only the beginning for us. And yeah, I'm excited about getting more seniors into our very first senior care home.
What do you tell folks who live with regrets? I talk to my mom often. She took care of both of my grandparents, but my grandmother specifically, who had dementia for over a decade, 15 years. Saw her every day, was very diligent. She doesn't have any regrets, certainly. I have regrets because my grandmother developed Alzheimer's as I was a teenager. And into my 20s, I was in college. I was running away from that. I didn't want to deal with that. I'm a teenager. I'm an adult.
Yeah.
I was in my mid-20s when she passed away. I didn't want to deal with that. I'm living life. That's sad. I don't want to. But I look back and I'm like, man, I wish I would have spent more time. I spent enough, but I didn't do the most.
Yeah.
What do you tell folks?
Oh my goodness. Well, I have regrets.
Yeah.
You know, so I tell myself.
Yeah.
I tell myself, you know, you don't know what you don't know. And so, you know, one of my biggest regrets is that when I moved here to Charlotte just a couple of years ago and I saw my dad giving his all for my mom, you know, I would tell him, you know, hey, Daddy, you know, let me help you.
Right.
Let's get some caregivers coming into the home to support you. And sometimes that's kind of like a thing that the older generation,
It's a
they're
trigger
not
word.
interested in that, right? And so I, you know, really kind of fought. We kind of went back and forth about this, and finally we were able to start bringing the care into the home. At that point, it was kind of too late, because his health had already really started to deteriorate. So, you know, again, you don't know what you don't know is what I tell people, and what I tell myself when I start really feeling down and out about how did this happen? Like, how did my dad die? Like, he was the healthy one. What went wrong? You don't know what you don't know. And now that I know, I've made it my mission and Percy's Village's mission to spread the word, bring somebody into the home. Don't just kind of let that parent or that loved one or that sibling or that spouse say, no, I got it. No, you don't got it. It's okay not to have it.
Right.
Like, I kind of wish that, I mean, I was pretty stern with my dad, and you know, but even with that, it still took a while for him to come around. You know, I wish that I had done it sooner. There's also an aspect of, you know, you have a healthy, let's take parents, for example. You have a healthy parent, and then you have a parent with, say, Alzheimer's, for example.
Yeah.
What does that look like when you need to separate the two of them?
Yeah.
Now that's a hard one, and we're not having these conversations enough. I'm a part of the sandwich generation, right?
Yeah.
Which means that, you know, a lot of my peers are caring for a child
Yeah.
and or a parent at the same time.
Oh.
That's a lot to juggle.
Yeah.
Right? And so how do we do this with, you know, keep it without losing our minds?
Yeah.
Right? My dad would start to tell me, he would say, you know, even before he started falling and hitting his head, right? That's a stress-related response to being a caregiver, right? You wake up, you're tired, you're doing all this, your loved one is, looking for their deceased parent who's been gone for 40 years, but they
Yeah.
can't find them, and they're opening up all the... I mean, you can literally start to feel like you're losing your mind. And when my dad started telling me, he said, I think I got the Alzheimer's. He kept saying, I think I got the Alzheimer's. And, he was saying it kind of in a funny way.
Right.
But he was serious. He felt like he was losing his mind at 82 years old, and he was.
Oh, my God.
So take it seriously when your loved one is kind of like crying for help, but not necessarily crying for help. Really listen, and really, have these conversations with other people who have been through it. Reach out to me. Like,
Yeah.
I love hearing people's stories, because every time someone tells me their story, I have a connection to that story. And I say, you know what? I might say, have you ever talked to your parent about what it might look like to separate them? I don't know what, separation
Right.
looks different for different people. Like, I'm not saying divorce now.
Right.
I'm saying, there might be an opportunity to there's a place that I send my mom a lot of the time, where she's able to engage with people her age, and it's called Gracious Living, and it's a day program.
Yeah.
And so I'm creating a day program for her at home, because there's going to be a time when she's not able to leave the house and go out to a day program, but while she can, I try to send her as much as I can, right? If I had started incorporating things like that and using those types of resources while my dad was alive, that would have been a big help for
Right.
him, but they were attached at the hip, married for over 45 years.
I get it. He didn't want to leave his baby.
No, not for a
too
minute.
far. I
Not for a
understand.
minute. But, but you just have these conversations. Talk to your loved ones. Like, just find out what they need. And you might be surprised at what they're open to, because oftentimes the caregivers, especially the spouses of someone with a disease like Alzheimer's, they're struggling in silence.
One last question before I get you out of here. I do want to ask the walk, and I always mix up the words, just how my brain works.
okay.
The walk to end Alzheimer's.
Yes, that's
Did I
it.
get it right? Okay,
Yeah,
I always
yeah.
mix up the words,
Yeah.
and it's not intentionally. Please don't kill me.
It's
But
okay.
this weekend,
Yes.
you're going to be
Yay.
participating.
Yes. Team Percy's Village. We will be at the Walk to End Alzheimer's on Saturday, October 18th. We've already raised $1,000 for Alzheimer's.
Oh, wow.
There is, 6 million people that are living with Alzheimer's disease, and over 11 million caregivers that are caring for these people.
And we have the team page up right
Yes,
now. Right now on your
please
screen.
reach out to Dana, me, at percysvillage.org, and I'll sign you up if you want to be a part of our team.
Oh, Dana, and while you're out there, give her a hug.
Okay.
Say hey.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Oh, right, right. Oh, right, me,
I'm
yeah.
soliciting the hugs.
I
but
thought you were talking about my mom.
And her mom.
I was like, she'll be there. You can give her a hug.
Dana and her mom a hug. Tell them you love them. Engage. Just really a source for really good information and help.
Yeah.
More importantly, help.
Yeah.
Dana, thank you for your time. Thank you for stopping
for
by.
having me.
Look, if you're just now tuning in and you just missed this interview, and you said, I just missed another interview. Don't worry. It'll be on our digital platforms, the full interview a little later. Dana, thank you for your time.
Thank you so much.
All right. So we are going to, do we want to take a break? Let's take a quick break. We're going to step aside for 2 minutes here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. All right, welcome back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sertivant. Carlene is here. James is here. We want to take you to weather, get you a full look at the forecast. So let's take a listen in.
Well, good Tuesday afternoon to you. I'm WCNC meteorologist. Majestic storm, and boy, are we getting spoiled again. Beautiful blue skies and sunshine. It's a gorgeous day there in the mountains. That's out there in Blowing Rock. Lots of people getting outside and enjoying the nice, beautiful weather, but also Mother Nature showing off. Look at all the beautiful peak fall foliage out there as those trees continue to change colors. Let's bring it back home there, right here in the Queen City. It's also quite nice. It's feeling rather warm. Not even a single cloud in the sky, though. And today, honestly, it's near picture perfect weather, especially if you like to be outside when it just...
All right, so we wanted to hop out of that real quick. I know we were getting a check on the forecast, but we want to go to this live press conference. City of Charlotte leaders talking about a third-party investigation. Let's take a listen in.
To conduct an investigation into allegations made in May of unethical, immoral, and illegal activities occurring within city government. We took these allegations seriously. At the request of some members of council, we retained Cranfield Summer to investigate. That's a law firm, guys. And we are here today to ensure that we are being transparent about the findings that were made. In all instances, the report revealed that there was no merit to any unethical, immoral, or illegal activities occurring within Charlotte City government. I want to repeat that there was no unethical, immoral, or illegal activities occurring within our city's government. Over the past many months, the city has been under a lot of scrutiny. Our nearly 9,000 employees need to know that they are the most important part of the city, and we support them. These egregious allegations hurt our team, and we owe it to them to investigate. They work for an organization that can be trusted and operates with the highest degree of integrity. This organization is one of the finest municipalities in the country, and our staff, they're passionate about serving our community and are dedicated to our residents. And although council has different ways they express their passion, we care deeply about this community and our team. This council and I work hard to make Charlotte the best that it can be. Over the past times, I want to say thank you that we are going to have you an opportunity for you, if you'd like to interview council members. I hope that you'll come down and talk with them about the work that's being done. Lindsay is going to provide you with the report that will be distributed, and because we want to address each other, and we also want to make sure that you understand that in transparency, we are taking this level in government. And so today, I hope that you'll have an opportunity, again, to speak up or speak with the members of the council. But more importantly, I hope that you will understand that we know that this community deserves service that we give them and the attention that they are owed. So with that, I'm not going to take any comments or requests or questions from you, but I hope that you'll have an opportunity to see what kind of work this council can do and how we can do this well. Thank you very much for your time.
Oh, excuse me. Okay, sure. I'm happy to answer questions.
Yeah, so we'll do those on the sides.
Sure. Sure, go ahead. Uh-huh, yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
Your reaction to this finding?
Absolutely. So, as I said many months ago, I absolutely stand by what I said. I also acknowledge that what was interpreted from what I said was different than what I intended. I covered that many months ago as well. So as it relates to any SEC or widespread financial corruption, that was not what I intended to communicate. I used a very famous quote, "Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely." And that was interpreted as a specific allegation of financial corruption. We've covered that point already, so I won't stay there long. When it comes to the investigation itself that I think Mr. Fox initiated here, as I mentioned then, I was supportive of the investigation. However, it's important that we do it in transparency and in a way that our public can trust. And so thankfully, we were able to execute that. I was able to submit in writing on public record my concerns in detail. I was able to participate in the investigation. I would have liked an analysis included in the report to really understand, because each of us are our own people, and we have our own interpretation, our own moral standard, our own what we consider unethical, our own interpretation of what's in the statutes and what is in our own ethics policy. And I respect that we can agree to disagree. So with that, as I mentioned a couple of months ago, what's important here is that we clean up our processes, that we operate in transparency and with integrity, and in a way that's going to deliver the service that we need for our community. So with that, I'm very pleased that we're come to a place where, though we may not agree, we're able to put our eyes on first things first. Yes.
It was a campaign email, and you quickly made it clear that it was a campaign email. You weren't out alleging anything criminal. Do you think that the investigation was warranted, given what you said immediately after you sent it?
So as I mentioned prior to, as I understood it, the investigation was about connecting to the SEC and airport bonds. I did have an opportunity to correspond with the SEC and walked away with the impression that they didn't feel that there was any relation to the conversations and concerns that I had. And with the airport bonds, we remain a AAA organization. So with that, for me, the investigation as a matter related to the SEC bonds felt like it was something that was a foregone conclusion, because again, never alleged any financial corruption.
So what happens next? What do you think needs to happen? Because we're in a re-election season, and if you know, what happens next? What should we take from this report, and what should be done? How should the city council govern differently?
Sure, great question. What happens next is the same thing that should have happened next a couple of months ago. Shortly thereafter, this initial conversation, we talked about how we would change our policies, how we would go back and make sure that each and every one of us understood the statutes concerning how we govern, where the authority lies, our own rules of procedure, and ensure that we're executing to that standard. And that's work that is ongoing. That's work that I have seen and have participated in council trying to clean up some of the things that over time maybe gets lost with tradition or in translation. And so that's what we continue to do, election season or not. That's what we owe to our constituents.
Do you feel like any of your concerns or behaviors that you spoke about earlier?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. The door was closed. I'm sorry.
Do you feel like any of your concerns or behaviors that you previously spoke about remain unaddressed after the investigation?
Well, as I mentioned, I would have liked to receive a specific analysis for each one of the concerns, because sometimes it may be about an education, or like I said, people interpreting things differently. And sometimes it's about everybody getting back around what's in black and white and aligning on this is how we're going to execute that. I did not see that in the report, but I hope that we can continue those conversations.
For either you or one of the other council members here, it's been a really tough 5 months.
Mm-hmm.
Many different things have happened. The mayor just talked about how she wants to restore trust to the city of Charlotte and Charleston Council. Where do you assess the public being right now in terms of city leadership? And do you think Charlotte can get to a point back to maybe where it was, where residents have full confidence in diocese? Or do you think that residents do have confidence after all of this?
Well, it's no secret that we are living in unprecedented times. Just across our country, across our world, it is very polarized. You all understand that what we see oftentimes is a sensationalized version. We saw just recently in Portland where we were, depending on what news station you watched, you either thought Portland was falling down or they were having a great festival, right? We have a very savvy electorate. Information is available like never before. And I think that invites people to think critically. And I hope that it does invite people to think critically, that they don't just take things at face value. So will we ever go back to a place where the ruling class is concerned with making the decisions for Charlotte and everyone else comes along? God, I hope not. Because we, the people, are the ruling class. And so I hope we continue to ask tough questions. I hope we continue to make those decisions that are best for our community.
Do you think we're in a better place now because of the challenges of the past 5 months?
I think time will tell. At the end of the day, does our policy end up reflecting the values of the community, and do people feel that they've had a real stake in the decision making? We've heard time and time again some of the refrains of people feeling like they haven't been a part of policy or it doesn't reflect their needs. That to me is going to be the real question and answer if we've done something here.
I know you started out saying that you stand by your initial comments. Do you have any regrets, concerns at all about where this is going?
The regrets, I can't say that I have regrets, because if I look back and say I acted in a manner that I felt was consistent with my values, I reached out, I believe in diplomacy, I had those conversations with people I had concerns with, I lifted those up, I made a good faith effort to work with folks, and at the end of the day, it wasn't about causing any kind of chaos, but it was about making sure that we are raising the standard and that the people know there's something to look at here. I was not aware that everybody wasn't clear that power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. It was an extremely famous colloquialism, but I regret that the interpretation of my comments were a little bit different than what I intended. But no, I don't regret having spoken up. I don't regret having raised the concern. Like I mentioned before, each of us has our own moral standard. And sometimes we don't always know what others' intents are either. All we can do is recognize when there's an issue, try to have that conversation, and lift it up when we believe that integrity and trust is at stake.
When you talk about absolute power, it was apparent that the 2 Republican members were not here. Does that say anything?
I'm sorry, do you mean the 2 Republican members are not here today? Oh, I don't know that it says anything. We found out 2 hours ago that this press conference was happening, so people have schedules. I wouldn't read into that.
If I remember at the time, one of the things that you and some of the others were concerned about during the settlement negotiations is that y'all weren't told that the attorney's office had dismissed an ethics complaint about the text messages. And I don't see that addressed in your media. I missed it. Do you feel like that was addressed in the investigation, that y'all weren't told about that?
Well, that was what, as you can see in the report, was one of the concerns that I had in terms of just transparency, in terms of being able to make those decisions eyes wide open as a council. As I mentioned, I would have liked to have seen some specific responses in the report.
So with that, so can you go back and request to dig a little deeper, since I guess the city didn't pay for this? So with your concerns, can you go back and say, I want a little more information?
Well, I did request from the investigators just a little bit more information for my own learning and for others, because certainly if there are things that we could be doing differently, or if there were recommendations or anything like that, while it was outside of the scope of this investigation here, I would be absolutely open to that, but I don't intend to go make a formal request for that.
Okay, so you did request, have you received that information that you requested?
No, I haven't. And again, I don't necessarily expect that a formal response is going to come back from that. I simply lifted it up that I'm an engineer, right? So if I'm writing a report, these are the assertions, these are the facts, this is my discussion around those facts, and then these are the conclusions. Like I said, the scope of the report was very, very limited. So I would like a little bit of clarity, but I think I can get that just in conversations.
And because you think it was limited, do you think that the investigators were biased, they were leaning towards one side of council than your side, if the outcome did not present
I would not say that something was biased. In the absence of information, I'm not going to assume bias. I, like I said, would just like to have a clearer understanding for each concern, what was the conclusion based upon is all. But my experience with the investigators was that they came in, they asked questions, they collected data, et cetera, et cetera. I don't have any reason to assert that there was bias in the report.
Thank you.
Yeah, Nick?
Specific policy changes that you'll be advocating for more immediately?
Specific policy changes? No. I know that a number of other council members have some things that they've been lifting up for quite some time. For example, having fewer than 6 members of council be able to add something to an agenda. That one has been floating around for a long time. For me, it's really about following the policies that already exist. What does it say in black and white? And let's just execute what's there.
And moving forward with red flags. So history does not repeat itself. What red flags will you now be looking for to make sure that history doesn't repeat itself if you're reelected on the board as we go forward?
Sure. If I am reelected, certainly the red flags that I would look for are continuing to look for the same types of red flags that I always look for, not from an ethical standard necessarily, but just from good policy. Have we done our due diligence? Do we have clear problem statements? Is everybody who has a stake in the decision-making informed to the same degree? Are we giving ourselves ample time to engage with the community to make a quality decision? And are we really assessing what the best options are versus a yes or no on what's presented to us, but have we really rolled up our sleeves and executed the work? So I want to see us do our due diligence, give ourselves enough time to execute quality work and engage with the community appropriately.
Anything else you'd like to add that we should have asked you that we did not ask you that you wanted to get out?
Early voting starts November 16th. Well, whoever you vote for, please participate. Thank you. October 16th, excuse me. Thank y'all.
All right, so we just heard from City Councilwoman Victoria Watlington, and before that we heard from Mayor Vi Lau. So basically this press conference was regarding a third-party investigation into what we eventually found to be an investigation into possible corruption. And what Mayor Vi Lau said was the third-party investigation results found there was no corruption, nothing immoral happening within the city. We heard from Victoria Watlington, who raised the alarm regarding something happening within the city. She says, look, I have no regrets about raising a concern. I wanted to raise the standard here at the city of Charlotte as far as city council. She actually said she would like for a more specific analysis from this investigation. And she said, quite frankly, and we were wanting to get a follow-up and hear why, but city council members heard about this press conference happening 2 hours prior to this press conference happening. So I know that's a lot to take in. So we want to go through the timeline as diligently as possible. So let's start from the very beginning. June 13th, 2024, former city councilman Tariq Bokhari told WCNC Charlotte he pushed for years to get patrol officers outer carrier vests. Bokhari pushed for $500,000 in city money to buy every patrol officer an outer carrier vest that had rifle plating. However, Chief Johnny Jennings wrote to WCNC Charlotte in a statement that the vests pose several concerns. Again, that is from June 13th, 2024. July 6, 2024, Bokhari sends CMPD Chief Johnny Jennings a text to say, quote, "You've made a terrible error in judgment, my friend. I hate what comes next." After that, July 6, 2024, a CMPD department-wide email, said all officers can now request a vest if they want one for preventative care in minor medical issues. A doctor's note would no longer be required. The change came after pressure from Macari and the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Fraternal Order of Police. Jennings did not say why he changed his mind. I just want to point out that. Then fast forward to this year, May 5th, 2025, behind closed doors and not yet known to the public, the city reaches a settlement with CMPD Chief Johnny Jennings. It would later become known the chief had been alleging his state and federal rights were violated during his dispute with former Councilman Tariq Bokhari. Then the next day, May 6th, in an email to constituents, Charlotte City Councilwoman and member, Victoria Watlington expressed frustration over the chief's settlement. This marks one of the first public mentions about the settlement and the details of which are still unknown to the public at this time. May 7th, there was a news conference. We covered that here. Charlotte Mayor Vi Lyles and several city council members held a news conference to forcefully reject the allegations of, quote, unethical, immoral, and illegal activities made by council member Victoria Watlington. Officials deny claims of corruption stemming from the handling of this settlement. May 8th, unknown at the time, documents would later reveal the final signatures were applied to the chief's settlement agreement with the city on this day. That same day, North Carolina State Auditor Dave Bullock, who was here on Live Impact News, announces an investigation into the settlement between the city of Charlotte and Jennings, according to a letter sent to Mayor Vi Lyles. Bullock said his office will be asking how much money has been paid, whether a payment exists, where the money came from, and the other pertinent questions related to this alleged settlement. Then on May 25th, in a statement released online, CMPD Chief Johnny Jennings announced his retirement. The department's official statement makes no mention of the settlement or his financial compensation. Then, same day, the statement, separate from the city's official announcement, the chief disclosed details of his $305,000 separation agreement with the city. It revealed the city settled with the chief in early May. Chief Jennings said he requested permission to release the settlement documents. May 25th, although officials would not say at the time, it is believed officials were meeting to discuss who initially leaked information about the chief's settlement. Officials could have been examining who leaked the information prior to its formal release. Officials may also have been reviewing allegations of city council corruption brought forth by council member Victoria Watlington, who you heard from that press conference. All right, August 1st, fast forward a bit, WCNC Charlotte obtained a letter by the mayor to council members. Lyles outlined specific changes to meeting procedures and council rules, citing the need to address issues and concerns raised about the governing body's effectiveness and transparency. Then, September 9th, recently, in an interview here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus, myself, Nate Morbido, we had State Auditor Dave Bullock come in. He says the results of their investigation would be released soon. That was on September 9th. Now, within days, his office discloses they found no evidence of corruption or illegal activity, but did highlight ways the city could have been more transparent in their process. And so that's where we left off. I know that's a very lengthy timeline, but that is a comprehensive timeline of how we got here. A lot to unpack. I believe Julie Kay is covering this story for us today, and we'll have more on it here on WCNC Plus. I want to make sure I get the right time for you so you can catch her story. 4, 5, and 6, she'll have more on it. But again, we're going to continue to keep an eye on this, cover this story. But for now, we're going to take a break here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. We'll be back here in 2 minutes here on Live Impact News. All right, welcome back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. So we tried to give you a check of the forecast. We had some news that we need to get to, but for real this time, we want to give you a check of the forecast. It's a beautiful day outside. Let's check in with meteorologist Majestic Storm.
Well, good Tuesday afternoon to you. I'm WCNC meteorologist Majestic Storm, and boy, are we getting spoiled again. Beautiful blue skies and sunshine. It's a gorgeous day there in the mountains. That's out there in Blowing Rock. Lots of people getting outside and enjoying the nice, beautiful weather, but also Mother Nature showing off. Look at all the beautiful peak fall foliage out there as those trees continue to change colors. Let's bring it back home there, right here in the Queen City. It's also quite nice. It's feeling rather warm. Not even a single cloud in the sky, though. And today, honestly, it's near picture perfect weather, especially if you like to be outside when it just feels really comfortable. Overnight tonight, skies will remain clear. We'll see those temperatures drop into the mid-50s. It'll be refreshing waking up tomorrow morning, but we will have another low 80-degree day. Then as we're heading through Wednesday and into Thursday, we have a weak cold front moving through. That's going to drop our daytime highs back down into the 70s for a couple of days. This weekend, Saturday looks nice. Sunday, plan for some rain showers. Yesterday, we topped off at 81 degrees, and today it's going to be nearly the same. Let's plan for those low 80s across the area. And you can see into the afternoon, are you doing anything outside? Because if you are, you have the right idea. It's going to be so nice and very comfortable because not only will we have a mix of upper 70s and low 80s, but also the humidity. Have you noticed over the last couple of days, really, you haven't been able to tell that it's muggy? It's because we don't have a whole lot of moisture in the air, and we're going to continue to see our dew points below 60. So that's fantastic. And even drier conditions, drier air will be heading our way as we're heading towards the later half of our work week. Out there in the mountains, 71 degrees today in Boone. It is a beautiful day there in Blowing Rock, nearing 70 degrees. Warmer though as we're heading towards the foothills with low 80s from Hickory to Morganton, and then right here in the Queen City, 80 for us, 80 out there towards Gastonia. Much of the same through Shelby. Slightly cooler from Monroe out towards Wadesboro, but still just a touch above where we should be this time of the year. If you want to grab some tacos, go find a nice patio, eat outside for dinner time tonight. It would be a great night to do that for Taco Tuesday, of course. About 6 o'clock, 77 degrees, still holding on to clear skies and very nice conditions. Temperatures over the next couple of mornings, again, we'll be waking up to mid to upper 50s. So if you like to wake up, you like to go for a morning run or walk, it's going to be really beautiful and it's going to feel quite nice. Now on Friday, it's going to feel a little cooler though, with upper 40s and low 50s on the way. And then you can see in our futurecast as we're heading into the 3 o'clock hour, as those kids perhaps are coming home from school or they have any after school sports activities, no issues. Again, clear skies overnight will allow those temperatures to drop well into the 50s overnight. Wednesday, we'll do it all over again. And for the forecast tomorrow, if you're making those plans, this is what it looks like for Wednesday. A beautiful middle half of our work week. Rain chances remain low until Sunday. We really won't have any great opportunities for that. But remember that cold front, it starts to move in Wednesday night and into Thursday. It's a weak cold front, so we will not have rain with it, but we will have a small drop in those temperatures. Not significant though. 2 more back-to-back 80-degree days, mid-70s Thursday and Friday. Saturday will warm up, and then on Sunday, we'll look for a high around 77 degrees. But as you can see in our Jerry Hunt Supercenter 7-day forecast, Sunday will be our next best opportunity for scattered showers. So keep that one in mind. Up until then, we have plenty of beautiful weather to get outside and enjoy it. No matter if you're in North or South Carolina, I hope you can take that time to enjoy it yourself.
All right, a beautiful day here in Charlotte. Let's take another break. We'll be back here in just 2 minutes here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus.
Hi, folks. Hoping you're having a great afternoon. Vanessa Rufus taking over here in the Live Impact News studio for Nick Sturdivant, who's now getting ready for our evening newscast later. We want to talk right now about the big international news. And of course, lots of folks saw Monday that really chill bump video showing all of these families reuniting as there was this release of 20 hostages. 2,000 Palestinian prisoners and detainees freed as well. And a lot of talk right now about what comes next with this Gaza ceasefire. We know that the president has been very triumphant here this week, declaring peace in the Middle East between Israel and Hamas. And it does look promising, but we know that there's a lot more work to be done and a lot more issues to be hashed out between the two parties. So here to talk about that some more, we have Naven Boppat, who is a UNC professor of political science and also with a specific focus and interest in Middle East history and relations. So I guess we just want to kind of get your take, first of all, watching what has transpired this week. What are your main takeaways? What are you kind of thinking, rising to the top here as you watch these videos and see where we are right now?
So I think the first thing is there should be some relief and joy that the conflict is at least temporarily stopped. This was a devastating conflict. It was, since many people had been killed, starting with October 7th, but the level of damage was enormous. You can just see the footage in Gaza about what this conflict was doing, along with the spread of disease and famine and other parts of it. So it's a good thing that the conflict was at least temporarily ended. So that part, I think, is something to be celebrated. But I think going forward, what we really have to look at is what happens as far as the rest of the implementation of the 20-point plan, and whether or not Hamas actually chooses to disarm, whether or not Israel pulls back to the lines that they need to pull back to, and what happens with the Board of Peace, as it's called, that's supposed to take over Gaza, who's going to be the forces that come into the area to provide for security, and who are going to be the technocrats that run it. So there's a lot of questions, I think, as we sort of move forward. But I think temporarily, just given the fighting has stopped, that's something to celebrate.
I mean, the video, I mentioned this, just a few moments ago, seeing the reunions happening and the reaction from folks in the community upon the release of all these folks. Just, I mean, it was emotional to watch, just to see the emotion of these people, receiving people that they haven't seen in so long. You talked about the fact that obviously there's more work to be done, and initially it feels pretty good, where we are, but we kind of have to see where things go. I know at the beginning of the year there was some promise, and that led to, a backslide. And I mean, what do you think the role of the U.S. will be going forward in trying to ensure that this does remain a lasting peace, as the president has kind of billed this as the start of? I know this is, someone you've looked into foreign policy for the U.S. What is the U.S. role here?
I think it's significant. I think that the biggest place that the U.S. has is its ability to serve as what we might call as a guarantor of Israel. So, and that involves trust. So I would say from Hamas's perspective, there's very little trust with Israel. But if the United States is then able to say that the U.S. is in favor of peace versus allowing Israel to achieve any sort of maximalist objectives in Gaza, which is not to say that that's something they would do, but if that's what they wanted to do, if the United States could then say that that Israel will not do that, I think most of the parties in this conflict would believe that President Trump can provide some constraint on Netanyahu and his government. So I think that's the big role, and if that's the case, that might give the Palestinians an incentive to continue complying. In a sense, they have really little choice because Hamas has been so badly damaged. So what then needs to happen, because Hamas is so badly damaged, is there needs to be some constraint on Israel trying to take advantage of the situation. And as long as there's a belief that that's the case, that would probably give Hamas an incentive to stand down for now.
I know. I feel like there's got to be a lot of this topic discussed in your classes. What do you tell your students as they're watching this? How do you prep them, I guess, in the way of, catching them up to speed, more or less, on the enormous background of how we even got to this moment in history? And I guess I'm kind of trying to see, as our viewers can all be students here of history, how can our viewers prepare themselves and educate themselves to kind of best understand this very complicated topic?
Sure. I mean, so in this particular conflict, especially, it's a long-running conflict. It has a lot of different parts, in a sense, a lot of things that interrelate. So it is complicated. But so again, what I can start with is just some empirical data when we look at civil wars more generally, is that we do see sometimes we get to peace agreements, and it's about 25 to 30% of the time. Unfortunately, many of them don't hold up. Many of them end up reverting back to conflict. So one example we can think about from recent memory is Oslo. There was a peace agreement made, and both Israel and the Palestinians ended up going back to conflict, and we're here. So there is a chance we'll see this, since this deal not reach full implementation. But given that violence has stopped for right now, at least there's hope, which wasn't there a few days ago. So, and one of the things that works in favor of this agreement, I think, is that there are several guarantors of it. So I mentioned the United States with Israel, but also we can look up Egypt and Turkey and some other ones that might provide some constraint on any sort of on Hamas or any other group that wants to provoke the Israelis. So there is, I think there is some hope, but there is a lot of details that still need to be sort of pushed through.
Yeah, you mentioned these other guarantors. I was going to ask about that, the other parties that could have a beneficial role in moving forward this peace. And I guess, the other nations that you mentioned, are those roles, forgive me for using these terms, but use of force type of roles? Are these more incentivizing types of, forces? How do you foresee, for example, Egypt and other nations that are having a stake in this participating in this effort?
Yeah, I don't see those as use of force roles. I don't think they would be willing to use force in this particular theater. What they can do, though, is to try to work with the governing body or the in Gaza to try to promote some restoration of life. And what they can do is also serve as mediators, which means that while Israel doesn't necessarily directly talk to Hamas, and the United States might not either, they can pass information to both the Israelis and the United States about what Hamas is trying to do. Qatar, for example, has served this role for a long time. They've been an intermediary between different groups and in Israel and the United States. So that's one way you can get talks continuing, and that also helps when there is it's sort of a third party that has an interest in peace that can pass this information on, so it's not necessarily thought of as being biased. So that's an important role, is just to try to pass communications on, and that can be something that can allow both Israel and Hamas to communicate with each other, which if they were both to do it just on their own, that might not go very far.
What are you looking for going forward? What do you expect to come next, maybe in these discussions, and/or what will you specifically be watching to see whether this is moving forward as a success or not?
I would say the biggest thing to look at is what Hamas does as far as disarmament. That's going to be part of this condition, or that's part of the plan, that they have to disarm. They did not accept that part of the deal. They accepted the part where there would be these prisoners exchanges and a temporary cessation of violence. Ideally, it's a long-term cessation of violence, but they did not accept the part where they had to disarm. Israel has said that that's a critical condition, and they want to see Hamas disarm. So that's the thing I would look for. If they disarm, how they disarm. Is it public? Do many of them turn in their weapons? Is there any guarantee that all of the major fighters of Hamas have turned in their weapons, and does that satisfy Israel's conditions? And then we can look at if Israel is going to, in a sense, are they willing to accept Hamas's disarmament if it happens, or whether or not they're going to claim that Hamas is not disarmed and then use that as a pretext to continue their activities in Gaza. So again, those are the two things I would look at. But that's and that's going to be a while, right? We're not going to know that overnight or in the next week.
Anything you'd like to leave our viewers with here on Live Impact before we wrap things up?
I will say, again, just to sort of put it in perspective, this was a devastating conflict. It's a good thing that we temporarily have a deal. What's going to be important now is what happens going forward, because it's important to realize It's a wonderful thing that Israel's the hostages have been reunited with their families. But from Gaza's perspective, there's a long way to go in terms of its recovery. It's been utterly devastated, and there are lots of health problems, lots of public education problems. So there's a long way to go for Gaza in trying to see if this can work.
Yeah, well, of course, we'll be watching very closely. I know you will as well. Thank you again for all of your insights here today, and we hope that you join us again here on Live Impact. Naven Boppat, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, folks, we wanted to kind of set the table here as we turn over to James. You want to do this breaking news here?
Yes, absolutely, Vanessa. As you were talking to the professor, we've got several live feeds coming into the Live Impact News Center. We've just learned out of Chicago that federal agents reportedly have deployed some sort of chemical agent. Potentially those things would include like pepper spray or tear gas. They deployed these in some sort of crowd that was gathered there in Chicago. And Vanessa, you know, we've seen several protests in recent days in Chicago with regards to the deployment of ICE agents and potentially the National Guard. So our affiliate there in Chicago just completed some interviews with some eyewitnesses, and I thought we'll go to that sound here first and learn a little bit more what has just transpired in the last few minutes on the streets of Chicago.
We're protesting against them. We don't want them here. We don't want them in our neighborhood. You know, they're taking people that don't deserve to be taken away, you know, so we don't want them here.
What did your neighbor tell you about the initial incident and why they were maybe?
They were on a car chase. I don't know exactly what was going on, but I know for sure they were on a car chase.
Okay. And then when you guys arrived, you said you were protesting. What did you see in those moments before the tear gas was deployed?
I feel like ICE was antagonizing. I feel like they were, you know, we were asking them questions, and none of them wanted to answer our questions. And then we would say stuff, and they would, you know, give us a little smirk. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I felt like they were antagonizing us. You know, we were asking, when are you guys gonna leave? We just want you guys to leave. We don't want no drama. We don't want no violence. We just want you guys to leave. When are you leaving?
Can you walk me through the moments that led up to that tear gas being deployed? What was going through your head as you saw them, you know, putting on their masks?
Well, I was crying. It's sad. This is sad. This is very sad. And then everybody from different neighborhoods, you know what I'm saying, came to support our neighborhood, you know, like came to support, because I'm pretty sure they're from here, or they were, people they know.
Different areas more or less around the east side.
What neighborhood did you call this from?
This is the east side neighborhood.
Okay.
I mean, initially I went because I was raised by immigrants. My own parents didn't raise me. I was raised by immigrants, so I came out here to support my family. You know, I have a very mixed family, and honestly, like we in this neighborhood, even though like everybody doesn't always get along, we're family in this neighborhood. Like we all stick together, and this community is all like families and people with children, and you know.
Well, things were tense, right?
Oh, definitely.
They were
I agree, but
it never got to a point where they needed to throw that tear gas.
They were like, you know, they're like, we were actually trying to mediate myself. I was trying to mediate because a lot of the boys were like getting really passionately, like, you know, screaming and stuff. As they should. I mean, I could understand, especially because they're a descendant of immigrants themselves. So it was just like, you know, I was trying to be like, you know, don't give them a reason. And even the officers seen that I was doing that, you know, because like, keep it cool. I'm not what I'm trying to do. But like his agents were like, move closer, and like do things like this, and you know, look at people funny. And they were just waiting. And it was like they wanted
people
somebody
out in the crowd.
They wanted
like,
somebody to get
Yeah.
aggressive.
You know what I'm saying?
Did you see anybody taken into custody?
Yes, two minors. Two minors. A 15-year-old and a 16-year-old were taken into custody. Because the mother was there trying to ask for information, what was going to happen, and they didn't want to give her any information.
And she's still there on the corner waiting for information.
I got a pink slip-up sweater. Right, like on the corner of the side of the 100 protected living, and 100, of course.
Okay.
But she's there with some other people that are out there. But yeah, two minor boys, they took them. They didn't want to give no information. CPD did try to get in front and let us know they were leaving, but it just escalated from there, and then they just started just throwing the tear gas like crazy. Like we just came over here to get some milk and see if anybody needed milk to clean their face and things like that. Yeah, I got it like 2 or 3 times actually, but I mean, I'm just glad that I could be supportive because you know, my people like I said, are immigrants. I was raised by immigrants, but I'm clearly white. I'm Caucasian, but I love your neighbors. You know what I mean? This is not American. This is not American.
Thank you guys for stopping and talking with us. I really appreciate it. Here, you know what? Actually, Tara.
All right, folks, once again, that breaking news we're following out of Chicago. As we've learned, federal agents have tear gassed a crowd during a standoff on Chicago's east side. And we were just hearing from some of the folks who were either part of that or witnessed it. For a little bit more context, this is near 105th and Avenue N in the city's east side. Once again, this is near the Indiana border, and this does come on the backdrop of attempts by the Trump administration to deploy National Guard. You might remember over the weekend there was a ruling, a temporary ruling, that the troops that the president sent to Illinois can remain there under federal control, but they cannot be deployed. And so there's a pause right now. And that ruling actually came just as another judge in Chicago had actually blocked the deployment of troops for at least 2 weeks. But certainly some high tensions over ICE operations and federalization of National Guard. We'll keep you updated as we learn more on the situation. Meantime, we've got another breaking story we're following. This on the East Coast. We've got Lorton, Virginia here. Aerials of a recycling center fire. We've learned this is a 2-alarm fire. It's happening in Richmond Highway, and you can see it does appear as though things could be under control, at least from this vantage point, in the sense that I'm not seeing any flames, I'm not seeing any smoke in the area.
Yeah, let's see if the helicopter zoom is back out, Vanessa, because this seems to be a fairly calm portion of the staging area.
Yeah, I was wondering about that.
Quite a lot of smoke that I was able to see during the interview with the professor on Live Impact News a few minutes ago. Obviously, the helicopter we don't have any control over, so it's showing different areas of the scene right now. But if they zoom back out, it looked like a fairly active 2-alarm fire continuing.
Let's get a look. Once again, they could have just been, well, there you go, zooming in on oddly an unaffected area. Maybe they're just getting shots of the responding teams. But I do see a lot of smoke up towards the top left part of the screen.
Yes, and let's see, we're going to get a wider shot here now that will show.
Oh, and it's coming from this big plume of smoke.
Yeah, and we were able to see as the helicopter zooms back in that firefighters have several ladder trucks, at least one ladder truck there in the air trying to spray water onto this fire that is, once again, at a recycling center just south of the Washington, D.C. area.
And oftentimes when we look at fires, you know, structure fires or wildfires, brush fires, we tend to look at the color of the smoke. Sometimes that can give us a little bit of a hint about how things are going and if there's some progress being made. Typically, if you have a lot more of a darker aspect to the smoke, it doesn't imply that there's, like, for example, that big puff that popped up there just a second ago, gray, that there's materials that are actively burning and can be carried away, versus when you start to get more of the white smoke, which kind of indicates more of a, I guess, more of like a steam type of situation, which is a good sign. So the fact that we've got a mix here does really show us, and of course we see the active flames, that this still has some ways to go.
It'll be interesting to see what investigators determine was the cause of this fire. Obviously, that'll come a little bit later on as they work to get it under control. But as we've seen in the past, recycling centers can be full of all sorts of combustibles, whether that be simple cardboard or even batteries that sometimes end up in these facilities.
Yeah, we've done a lot of segments here on Live Impact about the lithium-ion batteries. These are the rechargeable batteries. And while we don't know whether those play a role, we had several lithium-ion battery-related fires here in the Carolinas, both in North Carolina and South Carolina, in the Charlotte area recycling facilities that we've seen in recent months. A handful in Mecklenburg County.
That might be vehicles?
Yeah, they does look like there are a lot of vehicle parts there. It looks like
Yeah,
maybe,
I see metal and I see some tires.
Yeah.
Now, that's not to say it necessarily started in this location. As we saw off to the right, there was some sort of remnants of foam or water having been sprayed at another area adjacent to this. But what's burning right now certainly looks metallic.
Yep. And I'm seeing like tires and bodies of vehicles that are part of this stack of items that are burning right now. So very thick smoke. Once again, this is Lorton, Virginia. A 2-alarm fire is working right now. And we've talked about the 2-alarm aspect as well. Really just indicates the number of firehouses that have had to respond to this. So obviously, as you get more and more alarms called, it just means that they need more and more bodies, more equipment to respond to this, because Obviously, as you get closer to, for example, 5-alarm fire, that's like all hands on deck, essentially. For a little bit more context, too, because I just wanted to make sure I had myself situated, Lorton is just to the south of Alexandria. So it is somewhat in the Washington, D.C. area. Looks like it's a very remote suburb of Washington, D.C. All right, we'll keep an eye on this, folks. I think it's time to take a break. We'll do that. 2 minutes, we'll be back. We could rejoin this depending on whether we've got any developments to share. We also have a lot of dialogue underway regarding the government shutdown, so we'll have some updates on that front at some point within the next couple of hours. But regardless, stick with us here on Live Impact. We'll keep you updated with the very latest. We'll see you in 2 minutes. All right, welcome back, everyone, to Live Impact News. We do want to check in briefly here with this breaking scene we're watching in Lorton, Virginia. So once again, this is south of Alexandria, so it's kind of a suburb, if you will, of Washington, D.C. This is a recycling center fire that we've been keeping an eye on over the last several minutes. Still pretty active. You can see the flames and, of course, the dark smoke, which indicates you've got a lot of material that is being burned. And in different vantage points, we've been able to see it appears as though it might be a giant pile of smushed cars, and I'm sorry for the characterization, that's the best way to put it. It looks like they could be vehicles, old vehicles that have been discarded that are burning. No word on what caused this. We don't have any updates on whether there are injuries reported. However, with it being a recycling center fire, we do hope that maybe there weren't a lot of folks around at the time that could have been injured, but we'll wait to see from officials if we get any updates on that. Pretty active scene, as we mentioned, in the sense of the response to alarm. We know that there are going to be multiple firehouses involved with responding to this, and they've got a ladder truck. You can't really see it from this angle because the smoke is so thick, but they have been dumping water from above as well as from different angles from the ground. So we'll keep you updated. Once again, as we learn more, we'll pop back in with that. Meantime, we do want to talk about the ongoing government shutdown because we are in week 2 now of this shutdown, and we just heard from House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries on the discussions that have been underway, and of course a big stalemate at play between Democrats and Republicans. Let's listen in.
And Children program has been funded, and we expect that that should happen during this moment in time as well. In terms of the mass firings, the violations of the law, the bullying of hardworking federal employees, that's been going on since January 20th, the first day of this presidency. The focus of the Trump administration has been on visiting chaos and confusion and cruelty on the American people, as opposed to doing what Donald Trump and Republicans promised on day one, which is to lower costs. But costs aren't going down in the United States of America. Costs are going up. Inflation is up. Electricity bills are up. Housing costs are up. Grocery costs are up. And now Republicans refuse to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits, which is going to skyrocket healthcare premiums, copays, and deductible. Everything we're seeing right now in the midst of this Trump Republican shutdown is consistent with their failed policies that haven't made life more affordable for the American people. Republicans continue to make life more expensive. And Democrats are working hard to fix our broken healthcare system because of the crisis Republicans have created and to lower the high cost of living.
Leader
Devin?
You've alluded to and hit at this throughout the press conference about the pain that is going to be felt by federal workers, et cetera, over the coming weeks if this drags on. Which pain, as you're navigating the path forward here, is greater in your view? Is it the pain that is going to be felt by federal workers and people that depend on the federal government for services? Or is it the prospect of skyrocketing insurance premiums? And is there a point where the shutdown pain becomes too great that it's not tolerable anymore for Democrats to hold this position?
The pain of a government shutdown is being felt by all Americans, and it's unfortunate that Donald Trump and Republicans have decided to shut the government down and then not to do a damn thing to find a bipartisan path forward. Not a thing over the last 2 weeks. I mean, Donald Trump literally has spent more time on the golf course than talking to Democrats. He spent more time creating deepfake videos than talking to Democrats. House Republicans have chosen to cancel votes now for 3 consecutive weeks. This is their behavior. These are facts. No one disputes these things. And as Democrats, Leader Schumer and Senate Democrats who courageously continue to hold the line, partnering with House Democrats, have made clear, we will sit down with anyone, anytime, any place, to reopen the government and find a bipartisan path forward. But at the same time, we have to address the healthcare crisis that is breaking hardworking American taxpayers throughout the country. And the American people know it. This is not a manufactured healthcare crisis. It's real. And it's been visited upon the American people by Donald Trump and the Republican Party.
Leader Jeffries.
Thank you.
The president and the White House have confirmed now 4,000 firings across the federal government. As Kevin noted, that's something that Democrats previously said they were concerned about. If there was a government shutdown, the president would go through with this. Is there a way that Democrats' strategy here has opened the door for the president to go about these firings?
Donald Trump and his administration have been engaging in mass firings since day one of his presidency. For the Republicans, cruelty is the point. And the fact that they are celebrating, meaning the extremists, the extreme MAGA Republicans, the fact that they're celebrating firing hardworking federal employees doesn't strengthen their position with the American people. It weakens it. Because the American people don't accept that kind of cruel and callous behavior and know that any responsible group of people would actually be standing up to support our hardworking federal employees and trying to actually find a bipartisan path forward to reopening the government, which is what Republicans refuse to do. In the face of a growing healthcare crisis, open enrollment on November 1st, premiums, copays, and deductibles about to skyrocket, and the fact that Republicans have already enacted the largest cut to Medicaid in American history as part of their one big ugly bill so they could reward their billionaire donors with permanent tax breaks. Well, at the same period of time, refuse to consider a multi-year extension of the Affordable Care Act or a permanent extension of the Affordable Care Act tax credits. Democrats are fighting for everyday Americans. Cancel the cuts, lower the costs, save health care. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Yankees collapsed.
Not cool, Chad.
They're gonna riff Aaron Boone?
Chad, not cool, man.
House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries once again addressing day 14 of the ongoing government shutdown, still seemingly an impasse between Democrats and Republicans. We want to turn back to some breaking news. We just got a brand new update on this 2-alarm fire that's underway in Lorton, Virginia, once again outside of the D.C. area. We've got confirmation that there was somebody who was actually trapped in a crane at one point during this fire. So keep in mind, this is happening at a recycling center. There was a pile that was on fire. We thought it was a pile of cars based on what we were able to see from the aerials. Here's a post from just a couple minutes ago from Fairfax County Fire and Rescue. This is the responding agency reporting here that they found a person trapped in a crane, which is certainly a scary situation, also considering the fact you've got fire and smoke that is just billowing everywhere. Firefighters apparently able to rescue that person who was stuck on the crane, and that's when they started to put out the fire afterwards. They did have one person transferred to a local hospital. They're calling that person a civilian. They're not saying whether it was a person who was trapped on the crane or if it was somebody else, but one civilian they're reporting transported to the local hospital. They also have a firefighter who had to be transported. Say the injuries are non-life threatening. Didn't really specify the nature of the injury. Was it smoke inhalation? Was it exhaustion? Was it something unrelated? We'll keep you updated as we learn more. They do expect to be on scene for an extended amount of time, which certainly goes hand in hand with the aerials that we're seeing. The fact that now we can see still lots and lots of smoke. We were seeing just several moments ago active flames, and they have several ladder trucks and fire engines that are actively dumping. It looks like that foam from what we're able to see, and you can kind of see it because some of it is kind of floating off to the left-hand side of where you see that plume of smoke. But if you caught it with the Facebook posts that the fire department posted, the number of units that are on scene, I counted around 60 or so, which is quite the response. And we talked about this being 2-alarm, so we knew that it would be a larger response, having to deploy a couple of firehouses. James, are you watching something?
I'm listening to the fire department communication radios, and that's information that we don't always make reportable immediately because it's very preliminary. But I just wanted to double down on what you were talking about there, about at least one rescue that's taken place, and medical personnel are on scene potentially evaluating a couple of injuries right now. We don't know the extent of those injuries, whether they could have been caused by the fire or the smoke, or, you know, as we talked yesterday on Live Impact News, sometimes people just roll an angle as they try to get away from a scene. So there's a variety of different scenarios that could have played out, but as I'm continuing to listen to notifications right now, Vanessa, it does seem like the theme is that there could be a couple people who are requiring some sort of medical treatment or examination here as this fire does continue at this recycling center.
Yeah, and I mean, it's sad to hear that there were some injuries, including, you know, a civilian and a firefighter, because you never want to have anyone injured. And we were hopeful with the fact that this was, you know, a recycling facility. Obviously, we know that folks are going to be working there and potentially exposed to flames and smoke, but not as populated as, let's say, you know, an apartment building. And so unfortunate to hear, of course, of those injuries. We, of course, don't know as well the cause of this fire. That will be determined later, and really the urgency at this point to try to put out those flames, which appear to be quite stubborn. And I know we were kind of talking before about some of the pitfalls, if you will, of recycling facilities, in the sense of the types of materials that might end up there, either intentionally or accidentally. Because sometimes, you know, we were talking about the lithium-ion batteries. Those can be pretty stubborn to put out, from what we've heard in having dialogue with folks who run recycling facilities. We mentioned that over the last several months, there have been several battery-related fires at facilities in Mecklenburg County and in York County and other surrounding recycling facilities in the greater Charlotte area. And so you'll probably notice if you follow any of these facilities on social media, they take great care to talk about not throwing certain materials, including these batteries, into plants because they can basically get crushed, they can explode, they can start a fire, and it becomes a danger, obviously, for the folks working there, for the firefighters responding, and there are some environmental concerns as well and health-related concerns just by nature of having to put out some of these fires. So while we don't know that that's the case here, we can tell you that there are documented, materials that are problematic for these recycling centers, and it could be this, it could be something else totally unrelated.
We're getting a really good shot right now from the helicopter, Vanessa, of that crane where the operator was likely rescued from. We have confirmation from Fairfax County Fire and Rescue Department that firefighters did rescue a crane occupant, and this seems like the most obvious crane that would warrant rescuing. And you can just see the amount of smoke that could overcome anyone who would be up in a crane in a situation like this. It's somewhat reminiscent, Vanessa, of what we saw in years past here in Charlotte with our own 5-alarm fire at the Construction South in South Park, where they had to rescue a crane operator who, again, is, they're in a position very high up above a situation with only one way in and one way out.
Yeah, I definitely remember that, and that was a scary scenario as well. And it's very heartening to hear that they have already rescued that person. We don't know if they are the person, the civilian, as the fire department characterized this person, who had to be brought to the local hospital. But, obviously you've got the smoke inhalation that is the potential issue for somebody who might be trapped in a crane over this scene. You also have the fact that fire can obviously tend to weaken materials, even metal and steel and such. So that is a problem, and you don't know how long the crane might be able to withstand being on fire or being close to flames. But yeah, the smoke is so prevalent, we can see that even if you were far away, there's a very high likelihood that you're probably able to smell this. And we talked about this being in Richmond Highway. This is not too far from I-95, and I have not seen any reports that folks on the interstate have been able to see this from the interstate, but I mean, as far as just looking at a map, Lorton is essentially right there on 95 as you travel south away from Washington, D.C., past Alexandria, and well before you get to Fredericksburg, but just to kind of paint a picture of where we're talking about in the nation and specifically in that DMV area.
Yeah, I did a quick check of air quality measurements in the area, Vanessa, and there isn't anything showing up yet on air quality monitors. It's either too soon for the monitors to have posted that new data, or they're just not in the right position to pick up this smoke. But I do agree with you, as this smoke from this fire is blowing away, it is certainly something that would impact anyone who's nearby.
I mean, from an environmental and weather perspective, too, I feel like not just the air quality, the other element that always kind of, and it shouldn't surprise me at this point, but I always get surprised when we have coverage of some sort of fire, whether it is a wildfire or brush fire here in the Carolinas or just a really large structure fire. Our weather impact team has been able to pull up our map, our radar map, and sometimes you can see these plumes of smoke on the radar.
Yeah, I can tell you right now that the latest weather observations from this area have winds blowing to the north at 6 miles an hour. So presumably the north would be to the right of this image, because that's the direction we can see the smoke is blowing.
Okay. We were going to, of course, keep an eye on this, even as the chopper appears to either be flying away or it could be coming about. We talked about this yesterday around this time here on Live Impact when we were watching aerials of that hostage standoff in Orlando, Florida. Specifically, it was Kissimmee. But the fact that the choppers can't really stay in one spot. They can't just sit there and hover very well. Sometimes they do have to come about. So we'll watch that. If we get any more updates, we certainly will keep you posted. And we are very attuned to any updates as well coming directly from the fire department, not just the aerials that we're watching or reports from the ground from reporters there. So with that, James, I'll just quickly take your temperature. Taking a break and then moving on to our local headlines here. I know we've got to talk
Let's chat with Jesse here real fast. We've got Jesse on the line on a news story.
Okay, so of course we've got our team spread out across our viewing area here in Charlotte talking about all of the very latest headlines. Our Jesse Pierre is standing by, joining us here on Live Impact. Jesse, you've been trying to dig up the very latest on the shooting that happened at a Taco Bell. What did you learn here? What's going on here?
Well, Vanessa, I spoke to Lieutenant James May with the Union County Sheriff's Office, and, you know, he called this attack a brazen attack. Now, this happened at the Taco Bell off of Independence in Indian Trail, and Lieutenant May says that the man walked past customers and staff, and shot this young man inside who died from his injuries. He says this was a targeted attack, and the gunman then just ran out of the business and took off in a car. The victim died on the scene, and Lieutenant May says that the guy was also wearing, the man or woman, the suspect was wearing a mask. And now deputies are working to get through surveillance video, talking to witnesses and so forth, asking anyone with information to come forward because any little detail could help, you know, solve this case and also find this dangerous suspect who is out and about. Now, we did also reach out to the corporate office with Taco Bell, and they sent a statement saying our deepest condolences go out to the family and friends of the team member in this difficult time. We understand the owner and operator of this location is working with the local authorities in their investigation and has reached out directly to the affected family to offer support. So right now, investigators are working to identify the shooter. Like I mentioned, the shooter was wearing a mask, came in, shot someone directly. This was a targeted attack, and then ran off, got into a car, and now they are also trying to, you know, get details on the vehicle that this person was driving and get this person off the streets. Vanessa?
Yeah, this is a really disheartening and unfortunate situation to hear about. You talked about the fact that they are hoping to get more details from the public. For example, if somebody saw something or knew something, how can folks best get in touch with authorities? Which agency should they be contacting, and or which Crime Stoppers is taking tips here on this case?
So this will be for the Union County Sheriff's Office. Anyone with information, any businesses in the area, if, you know, you saw a car racing out the way, you know, past the Taco Bell and so forth, then you want to reach out to Union County Sheriff's Office. Again, the man who did the suspect, I apologize, we don't know if it's a man or a woman, the suspect who did this was wearing a mask, and, you know, the sheriff, Lieutenant May, says that at this point they don't know what led up to the shooting. They are still trying to figure out, again, what motive there was, but again, this was a targeted attack, and they're asking anyone with information to contact the Union County Sheriff's Office.
All right. Jesse, thank you so much. And folks, we also put a phone number for Crime Stoppers too, just a few moments ago on the bottom of the screen here on Live Impact. That is also a great resource for folks who want to give tips. Jesse, we'll see you later tonight for the news starting at 4, 5, and 6. And we'll, of course, urge folks to keep it here on WCNC Plus throughout the evening, because we'll have updates during our regular newscast, and then we roll on into Weather Impact at 6:30, and then Live Impact that starts again at 7. Hey, folks, you were probably watching in the little box that we had here in the bottom right corner of the screen that shot that we had over the 2-alarm fire at the recycling center in Lorton, Virginia. You actually were able to see in the last several moments, it looked like an additional person, at least one additional person, was actually being loaded up on a stretcher and brought to an ambulance. So more or less visual confirmation that there has been yet another transport. So keep in mind that that would come on top of what the fire department has characterized as a civilian who was already brought to the hospital and a firefighter who had non-life-threatening injuries. So this potentially would be a third person who was transported to the hospital. We'll continue to watch these aerials, and it does appear as though there is some progress being made in the sense that we are starting to see more of that white smoke, which would indicate fewer materials are burning here, and we're starting to see more steam, although it's still kind of a mix, as we can tell closer to the actual fire source itself. And of course, firefighters are not relenting when it comes to dumping that foam and water onto the fire. All right, so with that, actually, we have to turn to yet another breaking story we're following here, and this one's going to be closer to home here in the Charlotte area. And we've got some live images as our crews arrived on scene. So there's some sort of police activity reported outside the courthouse in Gastonia, and I'm not sure exactly what we're looking at, whether these are folks who had to evacuate, or James, do you have any insight on this?
I have a few more details that our assignment desk has provided us. So as you mentioned, Vanessa, there's police activity outside the courthouse in Gastonia. Our photographer and these individuals you see on the screen are being kept about a block away, so they're outside the police department. Presumably, I make the same conclusion you did, that these folks probably came from the courthouse area and are just waiting here for the conclusion of the investigation. Our camera, again, being kept back about a block or so as they conduct an investigation. I will tell you, while you were talking to Jesse, Vanessa, I did see what looked to be like the deployment of a drone. So the police investigation is ongoing here in the Gastonia area.
Interesting. So it looked like potentially police had deployed the drone. I know we
Correct.
probably don't
Yeah,
know, because news crews have drones too.
Investigators looked like they were deploying a drone. It looked a little bit bigger than the type that I know we use here at WCNC or other media outlets use. It looked more like what I would associate with a law enforcement type drone.
Interesting to think too. I mean, we talk a lot about the technology usage that's been kind of like amped up, if you will, for local departments, including Gastonia, where they've got, you know, the real-time crime center where they're able to kind of harness the power of various cameras around the community to track folks if needed, and they've got drones as well. All right, so much more information to come on this. We are going to take a quick break, folks. We'll be back in 2 minutes. We could be coming back to either of these live feeds or something totally unrelated, because we never know what will pop up here on Live Impact. Thanks for sticking with us, everyone. All right, everyone. Thanks for sticking with us here on Live Impact. Vanessa Rufus alongside producer James Brierton. We're watching a couple of breaking scenes right now. One will be in the Charlotte area. That's the main shot you're seeing. This is in Gastonia, where we have reports of police activity in the courthouse area. And in fact, Gastonia police sharing within the hour that they're asking folks to avoid the area around the Gaston County Courthouse. We were just seeing a second ago our crew on scene showing us some of the response that we're seeing from authorities, including a gentleman who appeared to be wearing a U.S. Marshal's vest. Looks like we might also have SWAT, I mean, I'm just kind of guessing based on the heavy duty equipment that we're seeing and some of the tactical gear that we're seeing some of these officers wearing. And it does look like I see a couple, at the very least, Gastonia police officers here. In the small box on the bottom right corner of your screen, we continue to keep an eye on a large 2-alarm fire at a recycling facility in Lorton, Virginia. This is down I-95 south of Alexandria, so it is kind of in the general Washington, D.C. Metro, if you will. Still very active firefighting efforts in the sense that we see multiple hoses that have been dumping water and foam onto a pile of sorts. In earlier shots, it did appear as though this could be a big pile of used cars that were kind of smushed and discarded, but we're still kind of waiting to hear if that is indeed the case. That just looked like the case to us, and we don't know what caused this, but we can tell you a couple people now have been transported to the hospital, including one civilian, as the fire department has characterized this person being, also a firefighter with non-life-threatening injuries. And we're watching live here the very moments that someone was actually loaded up on a stretcher into an ambulance, so potentially a third person also transported to the hospital. Now, our producer James Brierton has been keeping an eye on traffic impacts because we mentioned this is rather close to I-95, and I believe this is also off of Highway 1 specifically in that Virginia area.
In the last few moments, Vanessa, this traffic camera here on the right-hand side of your screen showed us the arrival of one additional fire truck that did drive past us and then continued down this road. The scene itself seems to be in the background where you see some additional flashing lights. We see some local police officers standing in the street here, clearly closing this to area traffic. You can tell just from the camera itself kind of how hazy or how smoky it is in the area. And I can also tell you, listening right now to fire department communications in the area, lots of conversation, as you might suspect, about water supply and water pressure. And while we were in that commercial break, we did see from the news helicopter aerials that firefighters, in addition to using fire hydrants, are also pulling in water from a local retention pond.
Yeah, I mean, while we can't say this is a fully remote area, this does appear to be a lesser populated area outside of, residential, where you might have, for example, multiple fire hydrants with access for firefighters to have. But this is, once again, a recycling center. This is off of Richmond Highway, so Highway 1, and it's really kind of parallel to I-95 as far as Highway 1 runs in that area. I know you're seeing some delays as well, which would not surprise us based on the closures and the fact that, too, for anyone who's driven past a very large scene where you've got a lot of smoke and things to look at, people might just be slowing down as well, kind of taking a look. We call them looky-loos, depending on what part of the country you're from, or rubberneckers. But these are folks who, understandably in some cases are going to be, letting off the gas, looking around saying, what is going on? Because you do have a massive scene that is probably now visible for miles around, James.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, this is probably an area many of us have driven past on I-95. If you've ever driven into or out of the D.C. area through Virginia, probably passed right by it without even knowing that the recycling center was there. Probably, like you said, Vanessa, a little bit more noticeable to drivers today. And we can see those looky-loos, as you call them, slowing down there here on Interstate 95 to take a look not only at what might be burning, but also that smoke is probably playing a role in the visibility on the drive.
Yeah, and you mentioned you were looking into potential air quality, probably a little bit more time that might need to pass before we get an idea of whether that is causing a problem. But I mean, this is an area we talked about. It's not isolated, but it is industrial in nature, as you might suspect, it being a recycling facility. But I would say, just down the road several blocks, you have the Lorton Library, you've got childcare, daycare facility, you've got the Moose Lodge, you've got various businesses, it looks like, that are kind of around this area. And it is pretty close as well to a recreation area, so biking, trails. I imagine there might be some folks who could be trying to enjoy the weather out and about, and they could be smelling this no matter, how far they might be at this point, because that smoke has been absolutely prolific. Kind of the other harrowing aspect of this fire, and we'll mention it for folks who are just now joining us. Oh, looks like we got a new mobile command center set up by the police there on the highway.
A utility truck that brings in some additional gear. I'm not sure, but they are just now arriving here on the area traffic camera. Again, the scene is in the background, so we'll wait to see if this police vehicle joins the growing list of units that are on scene.
Yeah, it makes me curious to wonder if they're trying to keep people away from the scene, if they're trying to make sure that they clear the roadway for, let's just say, we've seen it in situations where, you know, you have to transport injured first responders quickly to a hospital. Sometimes they will close the road. I don't know if they anticipate something like that, or if there are visibility concerns. I'm curious why they've shut down this roadway.
I think this is the main roadway that accesses the recycling
got it.
facility. And so I'm learning a little bit more about the facility as well, too, because we know we're in Lorton, Virginia here. This is Smith Industries. Seems to be the operator of this Davis Industries, Inc. recycling. They say they buy all sorts of scrap metal. They're located right there along Richmond Highway in Lorton, Virginia. And I'm going to just now go through their website and take a closer look at what more I can learn about the types of materials that they work with.
That's a good point. You know, sometimes the metal working, and not being familiar with all that is entailed with recycling metalworking, but sometimes we know that sparks can, come from
Take a
dealing
look,
with metals.
if I can get it to load here. This is their most recent video on their Facebook page. It was posted a couple days ago. It has nothing to do with the fire, but this is the location that is burning, because we can see that crane. We can see this conveyor belt. We can also get a closer look at some of the materials they handle. Again, it looks like different pieces of scrap metal that this crane was handling there in that Facebook video that they posted just a couple days ago. Just gives us a little bit of an insight into what they handle there at the Smith Industrials, Inc. facility.
Yeah, and I mean, we can't begin to guess right now what is causing this fire. However, we know with facilities that deal with scrap metal, you could have, for example, we talked about there were big piles of cars that appeared to be on fire as part of this pile that was burning. You could have leftover flammable materials in the vehicles themselves. You could have metals that react with each other. You could have large metal piles that actually can self-heat. We talk about, so many different potentials that metal work can go wrong, and we'll just kind of wait to see what specifically that is in this case. I kind of got a bit distracted when we started seeing the police scene and the closure of the roadway, but we were talking about this. I mean, they're really setting up, and I just got distracted again. They are really parking. They expect to be here for a while. This is what this is telling me.
Yeah, it seems that way for sure, because even once they get this under control, what we've seen in past situations is they will monitor it for hot spots. Who knows how long they'll have this particular road closed for. I did see in one of the traffic cameras, Vanessa, a school bus go by. You mentioned the library and some schools in the area. It's probably about that time that schools would be getting out. And so that's also a little bit of a factor that's ongoing right now as this scene continues to develop.
Yeah, very good point. So I'll get back to my original point, and I apologize for getting off track, but I mean, the other harrowing element of this fire is the fact that they had somebody trapped. And so we might have new folks who are just joining us here on Live Impact who hadn't heard that part of the story. The fact that you've had Fairfax County firefighters called to this fire at this recycling facility to find that there's actually somebody who's trapped in a crane. And James made the good point that, here in Charlotte, so many of us here in the community have those horrible memories of that 5-alarm fire in South Park, with similar elements, if you will, construction workers who were trapped on cranes and in places that had to be rescued. And so this was a person who we are hearing, in this case, they were successfully rescued. We talked about how the first responders did have to transport one civilian to the hospital. They didn't specify whether that person was the person on the crane or if it was somebody different. And we also have a couple of other injuries that we've got reported, including a firefighter. Good news is the injuries are not expected to be life-threatening, but we don't know if they're serious and just short of life-threatening. So hopefully that person is okay. And we saw with our own eyes with some of the aerial shots that what appeared to be third person, at least, who was being put on a stretcher and brought to an ambulance, presumably also for transport. It's really large. I mean, actually, this is a great shot because you can see 95.
Oh, yeah, it's right there in the background. Traffic is still moving. Maybe it's obscured enough by the trees that people aren't coming to a complete stop. Vanessa, as you were talking, I was looking at the website for the facility here, and as we've been able to see with our own eyes, they do buy scrap metal, including cars, at this facility. As viewers who are just joining us might be interested to know that somewhere underneath all this smoke is what we've seen, some scrapped cars.
Yeah.
I'm going to take a listen to Router 4 while
Okay. And I mean, we are kind of seeing this as well, just the sheer amount of response. We talk about 2 alarm fires and the fact this just means multiple firehouses are responding to this. It is kind of bumping up the urgency from a smaller fire and not quite as urgent as far as the response needed as, let's say, a 5-alarm fire. But what was interesting to see, Fairfax County Fire and Rescue did post all of the units it has responding, and there were probably about 60 or so units that are here, and we can kind of see some of those crews in action, and that we've got, you know, the ladder truck, which we can actively still see in that left-hand shot. You had multiple other hoses from the ground that are pouring water and foam on this fire. This is a very big response, and we have not seen firefighters relenting yet. They've been going since as long as we've been watching this shot, which I've almost lost track of time, but it's coming up on an hour at least that we've been bringing this to you live here on Live Impact.
Yeah, and there's a close-up shot again of that crane that we were talking about where we presume the occupant was rescued from. We're getting an interview fed in right now from Gastonia, Vanessa.
Let's pivot to that, folks. Keep in mind, this is the police activity outside the courthouse. We have someone speaking. Let's listen.
Okay, what happened today?
Well, we were eating lunch. The sheriff was having a hot dog lunch, and they came in and told us that we had to evacuate the courthouse.
A lot of people out here. It looks like a lot of confusion. It's going on 3 hours.
Yes, that's actually the longest outage we've ever seen with some kind of a bomb threat like this before.
Okay, what are they telling you guys?
Well, they were just telling us there was some sort of a bomb threat.
Okay.
So,
and about how many people do you think got evacuated? And then for those who hadn't got up close, where exactly are they saying this threat is?
well, to answer the first question, at least a few hundred people were evacuated. And I would say they were all staying here. They had to stay across the street and actually behind the DSS building, closer towards the Gastonia Police Department.
So, and the actual threat was potentially?
In the courthouse or the parking lot. I'm unclear about that.
How does it make you feel?
It's part of the job. This is not the first time I've been through this.
You guys have anything?
Just talk about like what it's like to be out here amongst everybody else, not knowing anything. And
Well, you're uncertain about what's going on, but you know the police and the sheriffs and the EMS are super professional. Like I said, it's something they train for. They run the bomb dogs through the courthouse regularly. You know, it comes with government work. You'll see that from time to time, sadly. It is the longest one, the largest response I've ever seen, though. Largest response I've ever seen.
Giving people an idea, because we're kind of secluded to it, how big is this response? Who all did you see responded?
Well, we saw the City of Gastonia Police, we saw the Sheriff's Department, we saw Gaston County Emergency Management, we saw the City of Gastonia Fire Department. They're all out here. They've had the streets blocked off in front of the courthouse. Like I said, in days past, it used to be they would just walk us down to the jail annex parking lot and walk the dogs through the courthouse, and it was a lot less time involved. This is the longest and the largest response I've ever seen.
Does it seem more serious for you or to you?
It appears that way, but again, I'm unsure why.
and you know, it's kind of a good thing that they're taking it seriously, right?
Oh, for sure.
Looks like as you turn around, everybody's kind of departing.
Looks like the threat's over.
How does that make you feel?
Great. It's great. I'm just thankful we had great weather for this.
Is there anything you said there was like a big response? Is there anything you would like to say about, I guess, how they conducted this swift response? Has it been professional?
Oh, it was exceedingly professional. They were very calm about it. They very calmly and quickly evacuated the courthouse. It was an outstanding job they did of getting everybody out of there and making sure everybody gets out of the courthouse.
And one more time, what was your name again?
Bill, B-I-L-L Stevenson, S-T-E-V-E-N-S-O-N, Bill Stevenson.
All right, thank you, sir.
I hope that helped, Bill.
All right, so a little bit more insights from a witness there at that police activity scene that we've been watching in Gastonia. We'll remind you that Gastonia police are asking folks to avoid the area around the courthouse. As this witness describes, he said some sort of bomb threat. We don't have that specifically confirmed from officials, but as we get maybe confirmation of that, we'll definitely let you know here on Live Impact. He also seemed to indicate that there are quite a few people who had to evacuate, and they're kind of just in a holding pattern at this point. We did see in earlier shots there in Gastonia Looked like U.S. Marshals had been responding, perhaps SWAT team. We saw some tactical vests and a large piece of equipment that was out there, and a couple of Gastonia police officers. So more on that to come. Of course, we also still watch here this large fire that's burning at the recycling facility in Lorton, Virginia. Starting to see, and once again, I'm not an expert here, but I tend to watch the smoke because, I talk about this time and time again when we cover fires here. It appears to be thinning. It appears to be getting lighter in nature, which is always a promising sign, indicating fewer materials are being burned, and we're starting to see more or less kind of like steam, I'll say. And it's starting to look bad. I don't see any active flames. That's not to discount the fact that this was such a large scene when we first started covering this probably about an hour or so ago. Had a couple people transported to the hospital. Have not seen a lot of conditions reported for these folks, except for the firefighter who did have to go, non-life-threatening injuries for that person, and a civilian transported. We know at one point there was someone who was stuck on a crane who had to be rescued, and they were indeed rescued. And as you can see with this double shot here, police are shutting down the road just outside this facility. This is specifically off of US 1, if you're familiar at all with the Lorton area. It's south of Alexandria, Virginia. It's kind of in the DC metro, if you will, and it's rather close to I-95, which we saw with different shots appear to show that traffic is unaffected, thankfully, on the interstate itself. So keeping an eye on that. I think it's time for a break, folks. We'll be back in 2 minutes, maybe back with these scenes. We also just had an announcement and some remarks from Governor Josh Stein regarding a gang prevention and intervention task force. So we hope to bring you that sometime within the hour here on Live Impact. Thanks so much for sticking with us. All right, welcome back, everyone, here to Live Impact News. I'm Vanessa Rufus alongside producer Jeb Goldman. We also have producer James Brierton, who's standing by, keeping an eye, helping us with the update on the Lorton recycling plant fire. This is the one that we've been covering at length. You can see the aerials here. We're still watching these. We're still listening in to see if we've got any updates from first responders on scene. As we mentioned before we took this break, it is starting to look a lot better from my untrained eye. But that said, we'll keep it tuned to all of the official sources to see what they have to say. Just a quick recap, 2-alarm recycling fire. It's been underway for at least an hour, if not more. One person was trapped in a crane at one point at this facility. We have counted now about 3 people who had to be transported to the hospital, including a firefighter with non-life-threatening injuries. We don't know the conditions of the other folks. Some impacts to the roadway here. specifically US 1, so Highway 1, which is the main road that this recycling center is just off of. And we are hoping to hear more about the cause, but that is still up for question at this point. And I suspect a lot of the urgency, rightfully so, has been focused on actually putting this fire out. And then, of course, afterwards, they will likely go in and try to see what caused this. We can tell you there's some sort of scrap metal that's involved with this particular facility. And so we'll wait to see if that is actually playing a role in how the fire sparked. With that, we do want to turn to the ongoing dialogue over the government shutdown. We mentioned in our last hour, of course, we are now in day 14. Still seemingly a lot of impasse here between Democrats and Republicans, and we've got underway right now as we speak a No Kings rally, which you can see. We've got the shot for you right now. And for those folks who are not familiar with the No Kings, we've seen them multiple times throughout the last several months in different parts of the country. Even in Charlotte, we saw No Kings rally, specifically lobbying the concerns that we're seeing from folks talking about the Trump administration and what they say are their concerns with how things are being done. Specifically here today, though, we've got the government shutdown that's kind of in the forefront of the talks. Let's listen in right now.
So they shouldn't start impounding, redirecting, rechanneling money in order to cover up for their own negligence. They should come back to work and reopen the federal government with us. Yeah.
Last question, and then some of us will stick around.
Senator Van Hollen, Kate Amara from WBAL-TV. Yesterday we reported that the TSA officers union briefed their members on assistance and funds that may be available to them. And on that list included food banks. The food banks, local, state, the Capital Region Food Bank, and I'm just curious to get your reaction to that. They've been working without pay for 2 weeks now. They're staring down the third week. What's your reaction to the fact that they're going to work and picking up bags of food at a food bank?
Well, this is what the Trump administration and Russ Vought have inflicted on our federal employees. The best way to make sure this doesn't have to happen is to reopen the government, but also make sure that we address this lawless president and get health care costs down for everybody. But this is the result of what the Trump administration has done. As you know, a group of us from Maryland were out at BWI Thurgood Marshall Airport just about a week ago, thanking our TSA officials, thanking our air traffic controllers. The way to thank them, most of all, though, is to get Russ Vought and Donald Trump to reopen the government. Thank you all very much.
So Democrats speaking on the ongoing government shutdown, looks like they specifically were calling on the president specifically to reopen the government. We know that the dialogues will continue here. We'll keep you updated on the very latest. Meantime, we kind of teased this for you a few moments ago before we went to the last commercial break, but here in North Carolina, Governor Josh Stein just made an address regarding the very first meeting of what's being called the Gang Prevention and Intervention Task Force. This is part of the governor's crime commission, and the governor's office saying this is an ongoing effort here to try to keep North Carolinians safe and look at violence prevention strategies. So just a few moments ago, we wish we could have brought this to you live, but we did have all that breaking news we're keeping an eye on when this was going on. So just moments ago, we had the governor here speaking. Let's listen in to his thoughts here on this task force and what they hope to do.
Every North Carolinian should be safe and should feel safe. And anything we can do to prevent violence from happening, we should do. I have charged this group of folks, and they're folks from all kinds of backgrounds here. We've got law enforcement, we've got prosecutors, we have educators, we've got community-involved people who do this work on a daily basis to tackle the questions about what can we do to make it less likely a young person would ever join a gang. And then for those who have, what can we do to make it more likely that they will take a safe path away from the gang? Because it is obviously not in their interest to be involved in crime, and certainly not our interest either.
Yeah, you mentioned that juvenile gang crime is up nearly 50% in the last 5 years. What do you attribute that to?
A lot of it had to do with COVID. There were a big spike in crime during COVID. Young people were very disconnected. They were disconnected from schooling. They were disconnected from the economy. And we've seen a decline in the last couple of years. That's good. And what we need to do, and what I'm asking this group to do, is to push that curve down faster and quicker so that we have even less crime. Do you have any other questions?
Okay, I'll ask another question. There's a lot of commissions that get together,
Yep.
and a lot of the times it's just meetings about meetings about meetings. Why should the community, trust this group to come up with solutions?
This stakeholder group has every perspective that is relevant at the table. And so what I trust that they will do is bring their expertise and their experience to come up with real solutions, evidence-based solutions that can make a difference. And if they are strong solutions, I will champion them every day where I need to. Some of the solutions can be adopted by a local police department or local town or county. Some of the solutions may need legislation. In that case, I will work with legislators of both parties to pass laws to keep us safer.
I'm sorry, I was late. You probably already answered this. Do you have any general response to the news about the redistricting session next week?
The legislature is supposed to work for the people. They should be not abusing their power and using it to take away the people's power. Voters should choose their representatives, not the other way around. So we have a General Assembly that's failed to pass a budget. I think the only state in the country where that's the case. They failed to pay law enforcement, the topic of today's meeting. They failed to pay our teachers salaries of their worth. They have failed to fully fund Medicaid. And now they're failing the voters by taking the voters' power away from themselves to give it to the General Assembly so they can choose who our representatives are. It is ridiculous. Is the theory that they're going to redistrict every 2 years until they get the exact right congressional delegation that they wish? It should be the voters who choose their representatives, not the other way around.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you, Governor. Y'all take care.
A couple big takeaways from that address by Governor Josh Stein. Of course, you've heard him first off talking about this gang prevention and intervention task force, of course, a big topic. And here in Charlotte, we've seen various groups try to talk about how it's so important to get all the stakeholders, all the entities who can help with youth violence to kind of get on board with that. And you heard him, the governor talking about this task force looking at maybe the root cause of why some young people get caught up in gangs or nefarious activity in the first place. Secondly, you heard him talking about the push for redistricting, which we've covered here, and we'll have more for you coming up a little bit later here on WCNC Plus. But just yesterday, we broke the news that looks like Republicans in the General Assembly are looking to push forward new redistricting. It looks like lawmakers are set to return next week to take a look at some new maps, which would give more of an edge to Republicans come midterms and remove potentially a seat but for the Democrats. But this is kind of a larger picture that we're seeing around the nation, where you have all these states now discussing how they might change up their political makeup via the map system. And you heard the governor's take there, the fact that he thinks that it seems to be a priority that's misled in the sense you heard him talking about how they haven't passed a budget yet, and now they're moving on to this. And so we'll kind of keep an eye on any more messaging from the governor's office, as well as folks on both sides, Republicans and Democrats here in North Carolina. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back in 2 minutes. We are just kind of letting you know, awaiting a news update out of Pontiac, Michigan. Really interesting story and kind of heartwarming too. Young boy, 3 years old, credited with saving his mom's life when she suffered a seizure. We're actually set to hear from authorities and potentially the family too in just a couple of minutes. So see you on the other side. All right, thanks so much for staying with us here on Live Impact News. I'm Vanessa Rufus. We do want to quickly check in with your weather impacts. I know we've been kind of hectic with a lot of breaking news, but we want to make sure that we got your weather needs covered, and that is the need to prepare for the next several days as it comes to the weather front. Hopefully folks have been enjoying the feels lately. I don't know if they're going to stick around more or less, but we do have meteorologist Majestic Storm here to tell us.
Well, good Tuesday afternoon to you. I'm WCNC meteorologist Majestic Storm, and boy, are we getting spoiled again. Beautiful blue skies and sunshine. It's a gorgeous day there in the mountains. That's out there in Blowing Rock. Lots of people getting outside and enjoying the nice, beautiful weather, but also Mother Nature showing off. Look at all the beautiful peak fall foliage out there as those trees continue to change colors. Let's bring it back home there, right here in the Queen City. It's also quite nice. It's feeling rather warm. Not even a single cloud in the sky, though. And today, honestly, it's near picture perfect weather, especially if you like to be outside when it just feels really comfortable. Overnight tonight, skies will remain clear. We'll see those temperatures drop into the mid-50s. It'll be refreshing waking up tomorrow morning, but we will have another low 80-degree day. Then as we're heading through Wednesday and into Thursday, we have a weak cold front moving through. That's going to drop our daytime highs back down into the 70s for a couple of days. This weekend, Saturday looks nice. Sunday, plan for some rain showers. Yesterday we topped off at 81 degrees, and today it's going to be nearly the same. Let's plan for those low 80s across the area. And you can see into the afternoon, are you doing anything outside? Because if you are, you have the right idea. It's going to be so nice and very comfortable because not only will we have a mix of upper 70s and low 80s, but also the humidity. Have you noticed over the last couple of days, really, you haven't been able to tell that it's muggy? It's because we don't have a whole lot of moisture in the air, and we're going to continue to see our dew points below 60. So that's fantastic, and even drier conditions, drier air will be heading our way as we're heading towards the later half of our work week. Out there in the mountains, 71 degrees today in Boone. It is a beautiful day there in Blowing Rock, nearing 70 degrees. Warmer though as we're heading towards the foothills with low 80s from Hickory to Morganton, and then right here in the Queen City, 80 for us, 80 out there towards Gastonia. Much of the same through Shelby. Slightly cooler from Monroe out towards Wadesboro, but still just a touch above where we should be this time of the year. If you want to grab some tacos, go find a nice patio, eat outside for dinner time tonight. It would be a great night to do that for Taco Tuesday, of course. About 6 o'clock, 77 degrees, still holding on to clear skies and very nice conditions. Temperatures over the next couple of mornings, again, we'll be waking up to mid to upper 50s. So if you like to wake up, you like to go for a morning run or walk, it's going to be really beautiful and it's going to feel quite nice. Now on Friday, it's going to feel a little cooler though, with upper 40s and low 50s on the way. And then you can see in our futurecast as we're heading into the 3 o'clock hour, as those kids perhaps are coming home from school or they have any after school sports activities, no issues. Again, clear skies overnight will allow those temperatures to drop well into the 50s overnight. Wednesday, we'll do it all over again. And for the forecast tomorrow, if you're making those plans, this is what it looks like for Wednesday. A beautiful middle half of our work week. Rain chances remain low until Sunday. We really won't have any great opportunities for that. But remember that cold front, it starts to move in Wednesday night and into Thursday. It's a weak cold front, so we will not have rain with it, but we will have a small drop in those temperatures. Not significant though. 2 more back-to-back 80-degree days, mid-70s Thursday and Friday. Saturday will warm up, and then on Sunday, we'll look for a high around 77 degrees. But as you can see in our Jerry Hunt Supercenter 7-day forecast, Sunday will be our next best opportunity for scattered showers. So keep that one in mind. Up until then, we have plenty of beautiful weather to get outside and enjoy it. No matter if you're in North or South Carolina, I hope you can take that time to enjoy it yourself.
All right, and we got a couple feeds that we're watching. We just want to show you this real cutie here. So we talked about this young man who saved his mom when she suffered a life-threatening medical emergency. This is in Pontiac, Michigan. We talked about the fact we're awaiting this press conference with authorities there, and it looks like, as we can see, he's there. The family will be there as well. A quick backstory, this young man actually saw his mom have a seizure when they were home alone. He took her phone, used her phone, basically putting it up to her face to unlock it, and was able to call a family friend to come and help, and essentially saved her life as she's been experiencing many seizures in recent months. So stay tuned. We'll have much more on that as soon as we see folks take the podium. Meantime, we do have folks at the podium right now in New York City, specifically in Queens. The candidate for mayor there, Zohran Mamdani, is having a rally with New York Governor Kathy Hochul, and this is an economic development announcement, we're told, at the Variety Boys and Girls Club of Queens.
Give them a place to just get in front of each other. And I'm also going to say this as someone who's so put down the cell phones and talk to each other.
Sorry, we're having some issues with the audio. I think we're pulling in multiple feeds on that source, Jeb. So I think we just fixed it. Let's get back to that rally. Bear with us. So we'll just mention this. This is actually going to be Governor Hochul's first public event with Mamdani since she endorsed him last month. It actually comes just several hours after a rally we brought you here on Live Impact News last night, where you saw the first public appearance of New York Attorney General Letitia James since her federal indictment. And so that was a very interesting dynamic to see, as she has been a supporter of Mamdani, and Mamdani has been a very vocal supporter of her as now she is going through the process here with the courts. So I believe we got the feedback with correct audio. Let's listen in right now. Once again, we've got New York Governor Kathy Hochul, who is speaking here at this rally for the candidate for mayor, frontrunner in this case, Zohran Mamdani.
Point on how hard it is for families struggling in this city and why affordability measures are so critically important. And I focus on this as well with my partners in state government. We started our last year out saying we have to do more. Inflation is just crushing our families. So went back to the drawing board. What can we do to put more money back in people's pockets? We now have the largest tax rate cut for the middle class in 70 years, going back to the beginning of this program. We also tripled the middle class, or the tax cut for families, the tax credit. Now, when I first became governor, you know how much families could count on in their tax credit for newborns up to age 4? 0. Somebody, clearly not a mom, decided before me that, oh, you don't really need help with paying for kids' expenses until they hit 4 years old. Oh, you don't need to buy diapers and formula and the little outfits that they grow literally every 3 months. So, okay, we turned that around. Now those families, as of this year in our budget, can count on $1,000, $1,000 for every child under the age of 4, $500 for the older kids. That's going to help families a lot. Also, statewide, free breakfast and lunches for every child across the entire state of New York. And you know what? A lot of happy parents are not in there first thing in the morning like I was, slopping together some oatmeal or some toast, or we used to eat Crafton Crunch. I know it's not healthy anymore. But just making breakfast for the kids, trying to get them to eat, then having to make the school lunches and go grocery shopping for the peanut butter at 11 o'clock when you realize you ran out and you got to get to the store. We just gave all that time back to parents, as well as $1,600 per child that they're saving on the school lunches. So that's another way we put money back in pockets. Inflation refund checks. Guess what? This month and next month, upwards of $400 is showing up in your pockets just in time for the holidays. That's how we're helping middle-class families, going out to 8 million households. I'm always going to keep fighting for families. And I've met people in diners and restaurants and supermarkets who just want to know that there's people who get it. My friends, the people up here get it. We're listening and we're delivering. So we're going to keep bringing down costs and helping out families and doing everything we can. And I want to thank all of our leaders once again. But you know what? It's also just essential that we take care of our kids. And working parents are struggling so much. And I know about this because I almost was a working parent, except I couldn't find childcare. And that is still a fight that my children are facing today, young families are facing today. And I look forward to working with these leaders, and I've had conversations with Assemblymember Mamdani about how we can get to universal child care. I believe we can. I believe we have to have the will to do this. And we started that effort in my State of the State a year ago. So let's find the path forward and give people that sense of hope. There's people who understand their struggles, and make sure that we continue investing in what matters for our children, give them a healthy start in life. And so how do we get back to where we are today? I believe that revitalizing places and creating new spaces for gathering is really the key to helping our kids stay on the right path. And this Boys and Girls Club of Queen deals with affordability and safety for parents. Parents don't need to worry about where their kids are when they're here. They don't need to worry about paying for someone to watch their kids after school. This is where they come. And so I want to continue helping the dreams of this community be realized with a spectacular building that's going to be home for not just the 4,000 kids, as I mentioned.
All right, folks, we'll pivot away from this rally in New York City to Pontiac, Michigan, where we've got authorities discussing this story of this heroic boy who saved his mom when she was having a seizure when they were home alone. So let's listen in. It looks like the sheriff is speaking right now.
Everyone else in the world except our young hero. And so he was able to realize something was going on and grabbed the cell phone, was able to activate the cell phone with mom's face, and then FaceTime an adult to get help. So at this young, tender age, with the energy that we all wish we still had, as he runs around, he was able to get help and make sure that his mom was okay. So the first thing I would say is thank you, and we intend to make him a junior deputy, and we've got some swag for him and some gifts. He's got an upcoming birthday next month, so we're going to give him some early birthday presents, and he'll be able to go thank you to Chuck E. Cheese and visit Chuck E. Cheese. We got some stuff from the sheriff's office to make him, as I said, a junior deputy. But it's a good reminder for all parents that you should talk to your kids that if something happened, what would they do in an emergency? Do they know how to dial 911 and only to dial in an emergency? And what to do? And this young man figured it out and was able to do it. So it's a win on every level that he's here and mom's here. That's the most important win of the day, is that mom's here. So Cody was cool under pressure, and I'm not sure that he's quite of age, but we're hiring. I know we might be pushing the envelope to swear him in at 3, but we'll wait. We'll wait till you're 18, Cody. Cody, you want a job? You want to work, Cody? So that's why we're here. We're going to give him some things, as I mentioned. We've got Deputies for Kids, and our Pontiac substation was very involved. We've got a gift certificate for Chuck E. Cheese. So you can go have a big birthday party and celebrate Mom being here and continuing to be a good mom to a great young man, Cody. Keep raising him so when he turns 18 he applies, because we're hiring. And so it's all good. We appreciate everyone being here, and so we're going to give him some good stuff. And if you can keep up with him, maybe you can ask him questions, but he may be moving. He may be a fast-moving target. Cody, come on up with your mom. So this may even be a little bit big for you. Not too bad. And here's my personal challenge coin. So, so next time you're out in the street, you can hold that up. Junior Deputy Cody. And we might as well put a little badge on you. Chopper. We'll do that later. Here, I'll give Mom the gift certificate, and then you want to bring some of those over, Major? Some of the presents, some of the stuff. We got some good stuff for you, Cody. You ready? Yes. Coming up. So, my kids used to call me Batman, so now you're Batman. Yeah. So you get to do some drawing and stencil and some fun, because Batman helps us fight crime, right? Okay. All right. Appreciate it. So that's for you. We'll give that to Mom. And then there's some other stuff, some other cool stuff. You ready? I'm going to take that. Look at this. Police car, yeah. We gotta keep that recruiting effort going.
I want this.
Yeah, well, you get it all. You get it all. All of this is yours. Okay?
These are mine.
That's
I
yours.
want it.
Yeah, and then from Chuck E. Cheese, we got some more stuff.
Ooh. I touch the cheese too.
Yeah. So pretty cool, huh?
What'd you say?
The what?
What did you say? Thank you.
You're welcome, buddy. Thanks for taking care of Mom. That's the important thank you.
These are my presents.
And there's your presents for sure. Yeah. All right, here you go, Cody.
Thank you.
You ready? You ready? Okay, let's put this right on, so it goes on your chest. See how where it is right there? See right there? Just like that.
At
Yeah.
the bucket.
Now you are a junior deputy. Excellent. Well done.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Mom, what's the opening?
Oh, yeah. This, we heard that he's an ice cream fan.
Oh, yes, he is.
So this is from the Dairy Queen, so it's ice cream cake, even though it's not your birthday until the 8th, which is the same day as my son's birthday.
What'd you say? Tell him what you tell him.
Thank you.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome. Let them be careful, because if you drop that, we're gonna, we'll all have to eat off the floor. We're not letting that go to waste.
Whoa, what? Mom, open my door. This is my hot chocolate.
Like, what does it mean to you to have your young son so aware that he can take care of Mom?
I'm so proud of him. It's amazing. I thank you guys so much.
Well, we just got to know him and we're proud of him. So you did a good job, Mom.
Thank you. I'm just amazed right now.
Well, we're glad you're okay, and we're glad you're here, and we're thankful for Cody.
Yes.
You want to play with some of that stuff? All right. They make this stuff childproof. We'll figure it out, though.
Look, you on the camera. Say hi. Look. Look, you on the camera. Say hi.
Hi. Mama, helicopter.
Yep.
Helicopter. You know, someday if you want, we'll bring you out and you can see our real helicopter.
Oh, what's that?
That's a knife so I can get it off this case for you. I know, it's exciting to me
It's a
too.
helicopter, a fire truck, what's this? A fire truck.
A fire truck and a police car and a helicopter. You got the trifecta right there. There you go, buddy.
Whee! You got fly.
Cody, can you tell everybody thank you? Cody, can you go tell everybody thank you?
Thank you, everybody.
You're welcome, Code.
It's flying.
Yes.
It is.
Yeah, I want to see if we can just interview her one-on-one.
Yeah, of course.
Does that thing really fly, too? The helicopter?
In our mind it does. In our mind it flies.
I want this.
Y'all, probably the greatest thing we've ever brought you in the history of Live Impact News. Oh my goodness, what an incredible story and what an incredible young man. That's 3-year-old Cody Woods. We mentioned before we took this announcement live in full. He saved his mom's life. They were home alone and his mom, Chantel Woods, had a seizure. She's been having seizures a lot lately, apparently. She started to feel dizzy and she collapsed. And he apparently took her phone, used her face to unlock the phone and was able to call a family friend and get help for his mom. So you saw here on Live Impact just moments ago the fact that he was made a junior deputy and receiving all sorts of accolades and promises of future jobs with the sheriff's office. And we just wish him well. And what an amazing kid. I mean, just full of life and also saving lives, too, at such a young age. Folks, we're going to take a quick break here on Live Impact. We'll be back in 2 minutes. We're following a couple stories around the nation at this point, and we'll have some updates for you then. So stick with us. Welcome back, everyone, to Live Impact News. I'm Vanessa Rufus. We continue to keep an eye on the very latest with the ongoing government shutdown. As we mentioned, we are now in day 14 and really not seeing any sort of path forward in the sense that the dialogue is changing between Democrats and Republicans. That said, we've got Democrats continuing to speak on the matter today. We've got Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer making an address on the Senate floor as we speak. So let's listen in right now.
How can they say we don't have the money to lower health care costs here at home? The overwhelming majority of Americans say we need help with our health care, and they're busy spending $20 billion because Trump seems to really like the leader of Argentina. They're both sort of MAGA types. The administration is giving this money away to help Argentina's hard-right president in his election, where his party is in serious trouble. It's a bailout, it's nonsensical, and at the same time, the American people are frightened, scared, worried about losing their health care. It makes no sense to give money to Argentina and then say we don't have enough money to help Americans with health care. It is so against what Americans want. I'm sure if we had a vote here in this 99-1 almost that the money belongs here, and that's what we should be focused on. Meanwhile, farmers across America are looking at this Argentina bailout on one side and wondering whose side the administration is on. It's been a devastating year for our soybean farmers because this administration has bungled trade talks with Beijing, and as a consequence, they've killed our soybean exports to that country. Now China is looking precisely to Argentina to cut new soybean deals, while our farmers at home suffer backbreaking losses. And on top of all that, you mean to tell me the administration's fine sending $20 billion of taxpayer dollars to help foreign farmers compete against American farmers here at home in the middle of a shutdown? It's insane, utterly insane. This Argentina bailout is a slap in the face to both American farmers and to working families worried about keeping their health care. So I'll say it again. If this administration has $20 billion to spare for a MAGA-friendly foreign government, they cannot turn around and say we don't have the money to lower health care costs here at home, because those costs are going through the roof. On the shutdown. On day 14 of the Trump shutdown, I want to remind everybody why we're here in the first place. Democrats have made it very clear, day in, day out, we want to open the government and have a serious negotiation to fix the health care premium crisis that is set to wallop the American people. Nearly everyone agrees that looming ACA premium hikes is a devastating problem. The public knows it, we Democrats know it, the White House privately knows it, and even many Republicans here in Congress know it. They admit it. And yet, Republicans remain dug in and insist there's nothing to negotiate when it comes to health care, that they won't even sit down and talk with Democrats about it. That makes no sense. That's not the way we always get our CRs done. The Republican leader has now scheduled 7 votes on the Republican partisan CR, and it has failed to secure enough votes to pass this chamber each time. That means, like it or not, the Republican leader needs to work with Democrats in a bipartisan way to reopen the government, just as we did when we passed 13 CRs when I was majority leader. Last week, we saw what happens when Republicans choose to work with Democrats in a serious way. We passed the NDAA with the National Defense Bill, with a strong bipartisan vote. We need the same enthusiasm from Republicans that we saw in the NDA here in the health care issue. And of course, the biggest roadblock right now to reopening the government is the Speaker of the House. The Speaker has now kept Congress on vacation for 3 weeks. It's just incredible. Government workers must work without getting paid. House Republicans get paid without working. Johnson continues to insist there is nothing to negotiate. But I want to make one point very clear. Republican leaders can say all they want, there's nothing to negotiate. But if Republicans don't change course, then very soon 20 million Americans are going to face financial catastrophe when their health care premiums go through the roof. And many more Americans will face it than the 20 million, but 20 million are right on the front lines here because of the ACA. That is reality Republicans can't make disappear by just digging in. The ACA premium crisis is not a fix-it-later issue, but rather a fix-it-now issue, because open enrollment starts in less than a month, and window shopping has already begun in several states where people have the awful choice. Should I go without health care altogether with my family? What if
Well, some issues with that feed, but that's probably some pretty good timing considering we just got an update from Fairfax County Fire and Rescue. We no longer have the aerials to show you, unfortunately, but we have a few more details to share regarding that recycling plant fire that we have been covering over the last hour or so, probably hour and a half at this point. That is a situation that is, we saw when the chopper was leaving, largely under control. However, we are hearing that 4 additional people had to be transported to the hospital. That is non-life-threatening injuries we're seeing as far as the impacts to them. And for folks who are in that area, there is still an issue with traffic control in the sense that they've got Richmond Highway, which is US 1, shut down in both directions right near that recycling plant. So once again, Lorton, Virginia, this recycling plant fire was a 2-alarm fire with probably about 60 units that were dispatched to respond. We have additional transports to the hospital. They say 4 additional civilians, so that would be in addition to what they were reporting before, which was a firefighter who had to go to the hospital with non-life-threatening injuries and 1 other civilian. So we'll keep you updated. Any new updates, of course, coming within the next 10 minutes or so, we'll bring to you here on Live Impact News. Otherwise, we'll have potentially some impacts or updates for you during our newscasts here on WCNC+. We'll take a quick break. We're back in 2 minutes, folks. We'll have probably a couple feeds that we could bring to you, so bear with us. We're going to kind of scour our feed supply and see what we got for you. Thanks for sticking with us. right, Live Impact News here. Thanks so much for joining us. If you are just now tuning in, we've been keeping an eye on a feed out of New York City, Queens specifically, as supporters, including the governor of New York, Kathy Hochul, have been there to speak at this rally for mayoral candidate Zohran Mamdani. So we've got another person who's speaking at this point. The governor has already spoken. In fact, Mamdani has spoken as well. But this was just a few moments ago. Let's listen in.
And our young people. And I want to say this because this is why this is so critical, Governor, what you're doing here to close this project out. You think about how much we spend as a city to house one individual on Rikers Island. And that is $550,000 a year to house one person on Rikers Island. But think about what we could do with that money. We could invest in free education, affordable housing. We could send kids to college for free. But we're choosing mass incarceration across this city, in this country. So this is what this is about. It's about saving lives. And this particular Boys and Girls Club has done that for 70 years. You think about how many lives have been saved. People from Astoria houses to Queensbridge houses. Young people who may not have permanent housing. Our immigrants who've come into this community. This center has served everyone. And no matter what your socioeconomic status is, your zip code, you deserve to have quality community spaces like this. Congratulations to our young people. I want y'all to stand, the young people in here, because this is a sound investment in you. This is an investment in you. This is what it's about. All right, now y'all put y'all cell phones away. Y'all can be seated. But let me just end in saying thank you, Governor, for this $5 million. Costa has accosted me many times on the streets, over drinks, in restaurants. We got to get this done. I'm happy to put $10 million into this project. Now, true story before I bring Costa up. Costa and I debated in this place for borough president. We had a debate, but we both won. And I often said it during that campaign that if it wasn't me, it had to be him. It had to be him, because I know it's hard. And let me just say, vision is the art of seeing what's invisible to other people. You had a vision, brother, but it's one thing to have a vision and then turn it into a reality. So I couldn't be prouder to bring up now, and of course I have to say, Queens, get the money. Governor, keep it coming. We got more money coming. But let me just bring out my brother, my friend, someone who's been a confidant, someone who's a visionary, who wears his heart on his sleeve, who cares about these young people and communities intimately, who texts at 1 a.m., I need another 5 million. He just never stops. It gives me great honor to bring up my brother, truly my brother, the one and only, Costa Constantinidis.
So the borough president's wife said to me about a month ago, she's like, you know, my D3, their son, really thinks Nico is his cousin because of how close we are, how family we are. And I really want to shout out, thank you, Governor Hochul, for this investment. Thank you so very much. Thank you to Senator Gianaris, Senator Gonzalez, Assemblymember Mamdani, Borough President Donovan Richards. The work that you're doing today is going to echo decades from now. I want to shout out quickly our board members, Milko Camposano, our board president, Walter Sanchez, whose vision this was, Steve Zimmerman, Kitty Prager, Rob Mackay, Dino Ansoulis. I know our board of governors, Tom Gretsch, Pete Rose, Will Fisher, Kelly Craig, Maria Wilpon. So many of you here. If I missed one of you, my apologies. But, you know, Governor Hochul, you're going to be changing the lives of the young people here in Western Queens. And we're going to have our school here as well, Renaissance Charter School. But we're going to have the largest Boys and Girls Club in the country. 1 out of 4 young people who attend a Boys and Girls Club in the state of New York will be coming through these doors thanks to you. We are going to be able to provide them with the first planetarium in Queens, a 1,500-seat arena, a regulation pool, a theater, art spaces, incubator spaces. We're going to be able to have them find their passions so that generations from now, they're going to look back on the legacy of Peter Vallone Sr.'s dad and smile knowing for the next 70 years we'll be okay. And then with 236 units of housing, with 69 set aside for kids aged in foster care, with ICL and Mega making it happen for us, we're going to be able to serve every family here and serve them in a way that's equitable and fair. So from the bottom of my heart, Governor Hochul, thank you on behalf of everyone here at Variety. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. And this concludes our program.
All right, folks, there you can see that rally in Queens wrapping up for mayoral candidate Zohran Mamdani. We are actually pretty close to the closing bell. Looks like we're poised to see a mixed bag for major indices. The Dow, as you're about to see in just a little bit, is going to end, we presume, based on where it stands right now. The day in the green, up about 200 points. However, S&P 500 down on the day, probably about 10 points. NASDAQ down close to 170 points as we speak. We continue to see trade concerns in the forefront, particularly the back and forth between President Trump and China. And actually, most recently, within the last couple of moments, reports that the president is now threatening China with a cooking oil embargo as a response to the soybean snub, which we know China has imposed and is hurting U.S. farmers. We've heard them speaking up about this, some of these farmers talking about the fact that they don't know if they're going to survive with the fact that they have all these soybeans and nowhere to sell them. There you can see closing bell probably just moments away, and we will await them ringing that. But once again, it's kind of been up and down over the last couple of days of trading. We had a big rally we saw yesterday, and Friday there was a dip in the markets with Monday kind of giving a little bit of a recovery. So at least for the Dow, even more recovery to see as it is poised, with we mentioned, to end the day in the green. I think